good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's City Council meeting of July 21st, 2017. And at this time, I would like to call the meeting to order. And would everyone stand for the flag salute, please? Chief, would you lead us in the flag salute? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item number 3, Director Maloney, roll call, please.
Faria.
Here.
Johnson Santos. Here. Lewis. Here. Silvera.
Present.
Villalta.
Here. We do have a quorum. Consideration of approval of agenda. Do I have a motion? Mr. Silvera.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Faria.
Second.
Motion by Silvera, second by Faria to approve the agenda as stated. All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? None carried. Let's go on to item 5, presentation, proclamations recognizing Los Banos Police Officer Eduardo Solis and Police Sergeant Ivan Mendez, Medals of Honor. And at this time, I'd like to introduce our Police Chief, Gary Breezy. Council, would you please join me down over here?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here. We have a little bit of a ceremony to go along with the proclamations tonight. We are awarding 2 of our finest a Medal of Valor tonight, and I'm going to explain the details momentarily. Just give us a second. Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, and residents of Los Banos. It is an honor and a privilege to stand before you tonight through this ceremony to recognize the extraordinary efforts of 2 of the Los Banos Police Department's finest, Officer Eduardo Solis and Sergeant Ivan Mendez. Before we get to the details of their exemplary service, I would like to take a moment to introduce each of them to you. To my immediate right is Officer Eduardo Solis. He grew up in Los Banos and is a 12-year veteran of the Los Banos Police Department. He began his career in 2005 as a CSO, and he was promoted to officer in 2007 after successfully graduating from the police academy. As a police officer, Officer Solis has been assigned to patrol and the Special Services Unit as a detective, gang officer, and detective officer in charge. To his right is Sergeant Ivan Mendez. Ivan Mendez is a Dos Palos native who began his career with us in 2001 as a CSO also. He was promoted to officer in 2003 after successfully completing the police academy. Sergeant Mendez has been involved in a number of assignments over the years, starting with detectives in 2005. He's been assigned to the gang unit, the countywide drug task force, and detective officer in charge. In 2010, he was promoted to the rank of sergeant, and during that time, he has supervised both the patrol team and the department's detective unit. Sarge has had his hands in a number of other collateral duties, including jail supervisor and training manager. Let me say that, get that out. Ivan, and for that matter, Eduardo, both are fantastic young examples of what you can accomplish through hard work and dedication. These 2 are before you tonight to accept the police department's highest award, the Medal of Valor. The Medal of Valor is an award bestowed upon an individual who voluntarily overcomes circumstances of imminent peril to their own life while in the performance of their duties. In this case, Officer Solis and Sergeant Mendez met and exceeded that performance on March 30th during their response to a structure fire. Their work that day started promptly at 4 p.m. in the briefing room at the police department. And like many others, March 30th had its share of ups and downs for patrol. But in the life of these 2 police officers, it was truly just another day. Officer Solis started his day involved in community policing at his daughter's softball game at the junior high. Sergeant Mendez was driving to Walmart, following up on a theft case he had been working on. But all of that stopped at 4:33 p.m. when the police department received a 911 call from Public Works employee Royal Lloyd reporting a structure fire at a home in the 1200 block of Santa Cruz Way. It was time for these two to get to work. Approximately 2 minutes later, at 4:35, within 2 minutes of the first 911 call, Officer Solis arrives on scene and begins to work the call. He encounters heavy smoke and flames coming from the residence. He runs to the front door, is able to open it, and he yells inside for anyone to come out. He can hear someone inside the house, but he's overcome by smoke. He radios dispatch that he believes someone is still inside the residence. He continues working and attempts to enter the home again using a towel he retrieved from his patrol car to help him breathe, but the smoke was just too thick. He yells inside the home, and again he can hear what he believes is an elderly female inside the home. He's not deterred, even though he later describes the smoke and heat as suffocating. He moves to an adjacent window and breaks it. He can see an elderly female confined to a walker inside the room, all while the house continues to burn. 4:37 p.m. Sergeant Mendez arrives on scene. He immediately moves to assist Officer Solis, and the two are able to open the broken window to better communicate with the elderly woman. With the assistance of Officer Solis, Sergeant Mendez is able to climb through the window and gain entry into the room to rescue the elderly woman. To his surprise, Sarge encounters a young child hiding under a blanket. He quickly scoops up the child and carries him to the window to the waiting arms of Officer Solis, who runs the child to safety. Officer Solis is back at the sergeant's side, who is still inside the home within seconds. 4:39 p.m. Roughly 6 minutes from the first 911 call and 4 minutes from the arrival of Officer Solis, Sergeant Mendez is able to lift the elderly woman through the window to the arms of arriving Fire Chief Tim Marison and Officer Solis. She is taken to a safe space and provided medical treatment, followed moments later by Sergeant Mendez, who exits the same window he went in through. 4:40 p.m. Within 7 minutes of the original call, fire crews are aggressively attacking the fire while other police and fire personnel make entry into the home, searching for others. Thankfully, no one is inside the home. Recounting the events of that 7 minutes, Fire Chief Marison sums it up best, and I'll quote from him. "It is my opinion that the officers' actions on March 30th changed the outcome of that incident. Without their willingness to put themselves in harm's way, I believe the occupants would have experienced life-threatening injuries. The fire department truly appreciates the risk that was taken by the officers while going above and beyond the call of duty." Ladies and gentlemen, I proudly introduce to you Officer Eduardo Solis and Sergeant Ivan Mendez. Mr. Mayor, I would like to take a moment to recognize the efforts of all those who work this call, because police and fire rarely do anything alone. From the police department, dispatcher Soares, Palomino, and evidence technician Kristen Soares, officers Mondragon, Bender, Kelly, Philibrown, and Hugh, sergeants Paris, Seha, and Reyes, and Commander Hedden. From the Los Banos Fire Department, firefighters Castillo, Dutra, Garcia, Nelson, Ramirez, Sawyer, Sequeira, and Sotelo. Engineer Galicchio, Captain Edward Vieira, Assistant Fire Chief Hurley, and Fire Chief Tim Marison. From the Public Works Department, Royal Lloyd for his quick and calm call to 911. Our county fire crews, Riggs, and EMS. Last, Mr. Mayor, with your permission, I would like to present these two with their medals. Then you may present the proclamations from you and council. Okay, boys, turn this way. So if anyone wants to get a picture, maybe we go this way a little bit. Ladies and gentlemen, Sergeant Ivan Mendez. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and the residents of Los Banos, thank you very much. Very kind of you to enjoy this ceremony with us. It means a lot to us. Thank you, and I will turn it over to the mayor for the proclamations.
Thank you, Chief. It was a great honor and so proud to read this proclamation on behalf of the City Council. Proclamation recognizing Los Banos officers Eduardo Solis and, and Ivan Mendez. Whereas on March 30th, 2017, at approximately 4:33 p.m., Los Banos Police fire officials responded to a residential fire structure at the 1200 block of Santa Cruz Way. And Los Banos police officer Eduardo Solis arrived within 2 minutes and was overcome by the heavy smoke coming from inside the home. Unable to enter the front door to the relentless smoke, Officer Eduardo Solis broke through the bedroom window and was able to communicate with an elderly woman who was unable to move due to medical reasons. Minutes later, Los Banos Police Sergeant Ivan Mendez arrived and entered the residence through the bedroom window, where he discovered a 5-year-old boy hiding under a blanket. Sergeant Ivan Mendez rescued the boy and handed him to Officer Eduardo Solis through the window before carrying the elderly woman through the residence, and was also handing her to fire officials through the window. And the residents suffered major fire damage, and the police officers were treated for smoke inhalation. And thank God you're both fine. But no lives were lost. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the mayor and the city council members of the city of Los Banos do hereby recognize and honor Police Officer Eduardo Solis and Police Sergeant Ivan Mendez for their heroism and quick thinking, which saved lives that day. Okay, this is a joyous occasion, so we do this every so often for a bathroom break, but this is the first time that we've done it so people can take pictures. And any family members who would like to come up after the police officers have taken pictures, please do so, and right now we're going to take a 5-minute break.
Can I get a group photo before you leave real close?
Yes.
Everybody? Looks nice. Perfect. On 3. Big smile. 2 and 3. Keep smiling. Before you get camera started. One more time. 2 and 3. Thank you.
We good? Okay. Let's go on to item 6, public forum. Members of the public may address the city council members on any item of interest that is within the jurisdiction of the city council, which includes agenda and non-agenda items. No action will be taken on non-agenda items, and speakers are limited to a 5-minute presentation. Detailed guidelines are posted on the council chamber informational table. When you approach the podium, please state your name and city of residence. If you have a cell phone, please place them on vibrate or turn them off. Is there anyone who would like to speak at the public forum?
Good evening, Bertha Faria, Los Banos Chamber of Commerce. We celebrated the grand opening of Eclipse Firearms and Training with a ribbon cutting on Friday. Eclipse is located at 846th Street, and owner Sonny Lee is looking forward to fulfilling his dream of business ownership. We are also happy to welcome Rodriguez Financial Services and Paulina Torres, a residential associate, to membership in our chamber. We enjoyed our 4th annual Dad's Night Out on Saturday and welcomed over 40 vehicles to downtown to celebrate Dad. As always, it was a pleasure to see the community come out and enjoy the car show, live music, and visit with friends and neighbors. Farm to Plaza Tuesdays have been a great success. We're having so much fun spending time in the plaza, providing this much requested service to our residents. We will see everyone next Tuesday, the 27th, as we took a little hiatus at the request of the produce vendors due to the heat this week. Come out, enjoy fresh local produce, live music, vendors, and food trucks from 4:30 to 9 p.m. every Tuesday. Local Assembly Member Adam Gray will hold a public coffee this Friday, June 23rd from 10 a.m. to 11 at Eddie's Famous Cafe. Drop by to join him for a cup of coffee and share your thoughts on legislative issues important to you. On Saturday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., you can join the Los Banos Elks Club for their annual car show at 565 East Street. Advance registration is $25, and the day of the event, registration is $30. You can contact Stan Avis at 617-5054 for more information. Don't forget to purchase your Veterans Parade grocery grab tickets from our VFW or auxiliary. Tickets are $5 each, or 5 tickets for $20. The public is invited to attend the long-awaited announcement of the lucky winner for the July 15th $500 grocery grab at Save Mart on June 30th. Proceeds support the Los Banos Veterans Parade. Our June mixer will be hosted by Infinity Staffing tomorrow evening, beginning at 5:30, and we will also celebrate a ribbon cutting to welcome them to membership. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak at the public forum?
Good evening. Geneva Brett, Los Banos, here as a representative of the Los Banos Veterans Day Parade Committee. And to pick up where Bertha left off about that grocery grab, a couple things you might want to know about that. It's limited. You get 5 minutes to get everything you can get in the store. No pharmacy, no alcohol, no tobacco, and no gift cards. So get some
What's
sneaks.
left?
Meat. Go to the meat department. Meat department. 5 minutes. That's where you go. I've heard people say coffee too, but I'm not that into coffee. Tickets are available at Pearson's Jewelers. We really appreciate their support. And again, the money does go for our Veterans Parade. And my gosh, speaking of the 4th annual Los Banos Veterans Parade, everyone is invited. Participation in the event is free. There is no charge to participate. And this year, our Grand Marshals are those veterans of Operation Desert Shield and Operation Desert Storm. Our parade theme this year is Welcome Home from the Sandbox. And we're asking for your help in locating those veterans who served in those conflicts or wars, whatever the correct terminology is, and invite them to be our Grand Marshals for the day. Again, any veteran, we'd love to have them. We have a website, Los Banos Veterans Parade. Missed that one, didn't I? Nobody heard that. Anyway, we're on Facebook. You can find us on Facebook. You can look up Mike Hughes or the VFW commander or Alan Cotta. I do not see our website on this. I think we're in change at the moment on the website. So anyway, don't forget the grocery grab, $5 a ticket, 5 for $20. Tickets available at Pearson's Jewelers. The winner will be announced on June 30. The big grocery grab, 8 a.m., July 15 at Save Mart. Tickets available at Pearson's Jeweler, $5 or 5 for $20. Thank you so much. We appreciate supporting our veterans.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak at the public forum?
My name is Stan Silva. I'm a resident of Los Banos. I spoke briefly at your June 21st, the unadjourned meeting. There was a few things I really wanted to add a few things to it, because I was compelled to speak because of what I saw went on with that 5% versus the 2.5% cost of living for these unrepresented miscellaneous people. And I was even taken back by that because it almost makes them not human. But these guys, during winter, at Christmas Eve, your sewer line plugs up, you call the city, and if your clean out is right at the property line, they get you going. 2 o'clock in the morning. You have a main break, those guys are out there doing it. It might even run into working hours, the regular hours, they go to work and they continue. There's graffiti. You call up, anytime you call the city of Los Banos, the graffiti disappears. I'm speaking personal experience. Wintertime, these mains keep flowing. Trees break down, these guys go out and do it. They're not asking for more pay. Like, if I want to get a police officer's pay, put on the badge. But to see that they're not getting the same parity, that's just doesn't seem right. You understand, like on a high pumping day in the city, you pump about 13,000 gallons a minute. Times 1,440 minutes in a day, that's a lot of water going to your houses. That is a lot of work to keep those pumps going like that. It's not going to be at that rate all the time, but still it's going to be 7 days a week, year-round. Everything that goes in the house has to go out of a sewer plant. Almost all of that stuff that goes down your drain has to go to a lift station. And these guys maintain these lift stations. The storm is the same way. Nothing's a free flow. It always got to go to some lift pump. You got to pull the trash. You got to pull the garbage. You got to keep these pumps going day in, day out, whether it's summertime, wintertime, these guys are hitting it. Today I saw them breaking holes in the street with some umbrella thing over the top of them. Hotter than heck, but they're out there working. They're not expecting someone else's pay. But I don't think and they're dedicated. But I didn't think they expected to be treated not the same. And that's the part that I kind of missed last time was, subjectively speaking, I do not think the fire department or the police department would ever say something bad about the other departments. And whenever they get a call from them, like they need a hand, the public works, those guys are trying to go, okay, what do you need? They go out and help each other. So I really just look at what you're doing to these people, because that cost of living hits everybody the same, but the lower the pole, it affects you harder. So I just wanted to speak my piece, and I just wanted you guys to understand that these guys have families, they got hopes, they got a lot of things going on. They took on the job and they're dedicated. But I didn't think they were expecting to be compromised and not at least, with parity with like cost of living. So again, thank you very much for your time. And I really feel that that this should be looked at closer. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak at the public forum? Not seeing or hearing anyone, I will now close the public forum and go on to item 7, consideration of approval of consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered to be voted or routine and voted on in one motion unless removed from the consent agenda by a city council member. And tonight we have
Items on the consent agenda are as follows. Warrants numbers 205219 through 205398 in the amount of $489,091.67. Minutes for the June 7th, 2017 City Council meeting. City Council Resolution number 5866, awarding contract for legal advertising to the Los Banos Enterprise for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2018, and authorizing and directing the city manager to execute agreement. City Council Resolution number 5867, accepting grant of public use easement from O'Reilly Auto Enterprises, LLC for assessors parcel numbers 026044041, 026044042, 026044043, 026044044, located at the northwest corner of Highway 152 and 6th Street. City Council Resolution Number 5868, amending the fiscal year 2016-2017 budget by increasing the appropriation amount in the federal grant fund for both the revenues and expenditures in the amount of $5,000 for reimbursement of overtime, organized crime drug reinforcement task force grant overtime expenses. And the items are to be approved as submitted.
Okay, is there any city council member who would like to remove an item for discussion? Mrs. Lewis?
Mr. Mayor, excuse me, there are no items I'd like to remove, and I request if any other council member has an item, please speak so. If not, I'd like to request an approval for the consent agenda as submitted.
Okay, do I have a second? Mr. Faria?
I'll second that motion.
Motion by Lewis, second by Faria to approve the consent agenda as read. All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? None carried. Let's go on to item 8. Los Banos Community Service Network Grant Presentation by Jeff Kettering, Merced County Chief Probation Officer. Jeff?
Thank you, Mayor, City Council members. I want to thank you for the opportunity to share this information with all of you and the community of Los Banos, and thank Chief Breezy for the invitation through the council. As you said, my name is Jeff Kettering. I'm the Chief Probation Officer in Merced County. And to go back a little bit, Prop 47 was passed by the voters in California about 2 years ago, called the Safe Neighborhood and Schools Act. The intent of that proposition was to provide funding to the state of California to create programs for youth and or adults. In order to get that money, it reduced several criminal offenses from felonies down to misdemeanors, and the state of California saves money by not incarcerating these individuals. I'm not here to make a statement on Prop 47. I'm telling you what the results of Prop 47 are. Shortly thereafter, they released a competitive grant process to be able to apply. What the target population was individuals who were, and I'll use their words, criminally involved. So the person has to be involved in the criminal justice system in some way, shape, or form, and have an alcohol or drug issue. Those were the two reasons, the target population. We got together with some individuals within the county who agreed to write this grant, and we started doing focus groups within the county. We narrowed it down to 2 communities within Merced County, one being the city of Los Banos and the Los Banos, west side area. We held 2 focus groups in the city of Los Banos. The one thing that really got my, it's not curiosity, really involvement within the city and wanting to put these resources here was a question was asked. And this made the newspaper, and interestingly enough, I've had no less than 5 calls from community members, both concerned about it and also thanking the county for this grant. Is I asked the question, can anybody in this room tell me an organization that provides services to the criminally involved youth or young adults that is not a government agency in the Los Banos area? And the room was crickets. There was a good representation of this community in that room. That told me at that time that my focus area was going to be this area of the county. So we wrote the grant, and I believe, I haven't seen the final tallies, we were one of only two grants given in the entire Central Valley. It's not a large grant. It's $1 million over 3 years, so approximately $330,000 over the 3-year period of time. What we have committed to doing in the grant is providing what I have called a community center hub in the city of Los Banos. In that hub, it'll be providing services such as mentoring, alcohol and drug counseling, and any other services a community-based organization wants to, in a sense, come up with to provide. One of the interesting parts about the Prop 47 grant, it's very different from any other grant I've been involved with in over 25 years in law enforcement. A minimum of 50% of the funding has to go to a non-governmental source. So I can't go out there and hire employees to provide these services. The money has to go to community-based organizations. I made the decision to up that 50%, and this grant is I believe it's 81%, approximately 80% of the funding in this grant will go to community-based organizations. The flip side of that is, because of the governmental process, I now have to go out to RFPs for this. So these services will not be coming immediately. I have to go out to RFP, and then we'll be receiving proposals from community-based organizations. I expect several. I've already heard from several community-based organizations throughout Merced County that are going to be interested in submitting proposals, and I look forward to that. The one thing I forgot to say is the age group we're targeting is 16 to 24. One of your community members called me and asked, why are you not targeting very young youth, elementary school, junior high? I wish I could. With a junior high child myself, I understand that's a critical age. One of the requirements for this grant is we target people who are criminally involved. We ran some numbers. The amount of criminally involved junior high age students in this part of the county, I would have had a very hard time justifying the amount of money for the number of youth involved. The 16 to 24, that can catch them at a fairly young age, are young adults. We're experiencing a lot of adults involved in the criminal justice system who they were not involved in the system as a youth. They lose some of their support system as parents, they lose some of the support system at school, and then they go and make bad decisions. That's the other part of the group we're looking for. The other part is all of these individuals have to have some type of alcohol or drug involvement. So we're really focusing on getting them removed from the substance abuse that's really made them have bad decisions. I expect a lot of involvement from community-based organizations. I want to use this money to kickstart, to expand, to really bring these organizations into this county. So one thing I've seen as a county over the almost 27 years I've been in this department, Merced County has lacked in community-based organizations to provide these services. The government provides the overwhelming majority of services to this population in this county. That's not the norm throughout the state. We all know the financial situation of Merced County historically, and it's been difficult to fund some of these organizations. I'm hoping that, although small, the amount of money is going to bring an organization into Los Banos or help an organization expand and be able to have a foothold in this community. This community is important. Throughout my years, my first assignment as a deputy probation officer was in this community, and I loved it. I want to be able to bring the services here. I want to be able to support the population that we deal with in Los Banos, and my goal is to make this as successful as it can. I know you have a long meeting. I'm going to try and make it quick. I'd be happy to answer any questions the councilor may or may have.
Okay, I have a couple of lights already. Mrs. Lewis?
Thank you. Mr. Kenning, what type of organizations are you looking at for these grants to provide the services?
Anybody can respond to the request for proposal that we're going to be putting out. We have not, this grant was just awarded last week, and it became official last week when Chief Parisi called me. I said, I'm not going to have a lot of information, but I wanted to bring this information to the city. There are a couple of organizations that provide services to this population. I will have to be careful about saying their name because
I wasn't looking for a name. I was just looking for a type. Is it individual counseling, or
it will be the services provided in the grant range from individual counseling to providing mentoring services to providing cognitive behavioral therapy in a group setting. Okay. The only name that is specifically mentioned in the grant is an organization called El Joven Noble, which provides culturally competent group counseling to the youth and young adults in the community. And that is one contract that we are going to be entering into.
So in order for a group, organization or an individual that may provide this type of service, they would need to contact our chief of police, or who do they contact to?
Once the RFP goes out, it's publicly posted. Anybody who contacts me or anybody within my agency, or if they contact Chief Parisi who gets in touch with me, anybody whose name we have, I forward to our Administrative Services Division, and when the RFP goes out, they are personally notified when the RFP goes out.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think you may have answered the question I had in mind. That was specifically what kinds of services, and I think you mentioned some. Are there, and that's pretty much the range that you just mentioned. That's
the gamut. When we put out the request for proposal, as long as the responding party comes within the parameters of the grant, we're going to be open to suggestions from any proposing party.
Very good. Thank you.
Mrs. Santos.
My thoughts were to the age limit. I know you said that between that age is the best, was seen as the best, but around the age of 14 and a half, 15, kids enter high school where they experience different influences. I was just wondering if there's some type of monitoring system for kids who might be in danger for or needing these types of services? Or
there are services potentially available through this grant. We're going to be looking at a really specific age. The other part that we have to take into consideration is because this all may be under one roof, I want to be careful about putting a 13 or 14-year-old in the same program with a 22-year-old potentially convicted felon. All the research shows that if you mix some of the risk levels, then that could rub off on the wrong way with somebody who's a low-level offender. We're really targeting not your diversionary individuals, your individuals who are, arrested one time for making a bad decision. This is more targeting people who are involved in the criminal justice system and being able to provide some additional resources to help get them out.
Thank you.
Mr. Silvera.
Mine, I guess, you'd have to be a nonprofit organization to apply for this grant?
Yes.
Okay.
That is correct.
Okay, nonprofits. Thank you.
Let me ask you, will you be tracking the statistics to see about recidivism and with these groups to see who has the best practice of all the groups that maybe you will employ?
Thank you for asking that. On my notes, I put research and data, and I forgot to talk about that. Okay. We have come into an agreement with California State University Stanislaus and one of their researchers, and it's part of our grant because there's money attached to it, that they will be tracking all the data, all the recidivism rates, and all the outcomes of any program that's put in place under this grant. We have to because of the requirements of the grant, but it's something that, as a criminal justice agency, that we have gotten better at over the future. We're not great, but this grant requires it, and we're already going to be entering into agreement with a university to track that data.
Because I'm thinking if you deploy 5 groups and 5 groups are funded, and 4 of those 5 groups have best practices and recidivism is low, tracking how they did that so we can expand upon this because the grant is only for 3 years.
That is correct, and that is once the grant comes out, this is a state grant. Everything is public knowledge. You can go to the BSCC, Board of State and Community Corrections website, and you can read the entire grant proposal if that's something you want to do. All of the data will also be published on their website, and that's something that, as a department head of a law enforcement agency, I'm trying to do more of track outcomes of programs we contract with, and then continue on the ones that are positive, and this will be in that same vein.
Can we also coordinate with the school system because of the counselors there, the 16 to 18-year-olds who are in this program, that you can see if their school attendance, their school work is improving?
That will be something. The answer is yes to your question, Mayor. Okay. We will have to see the best way to do that. You do have some confidentiality issues when it comes to youth, and those are things that we'll have to work in. I can give you an example of youth that are on probation. We're regularly speaking with school officials just to track their progress in school, and information is a constant flow both ways. Okay,
great. That's all I have. All right, council members, any other questions? Well, Jeff, thank you for the news, and as soon as those services are in place, maybe you can come back and give us another report as to the groups that have been employed.
I'd be honored.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go on to item 9, public hearing. If you challenge a proposed action described herein in court, you may be limited to raising only those issues you or someone else raised at the public hearing described herein or in written correspondence delivered to the city at or prior to the public hearing. Item 9A, public hearing to receive public comment consideration of the appropriation limitation for the 2017-2018 fiscal year. And item 9A1, City Council Resolution number 5869, setting the tax-related appropriation limit in compliance with Proposition 4 and Proposition 111 for the fiscal year 2017-2018. This is an action item, and we're going to go to Finance Director Williams.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and council members. Tonight I have for you the annual appropriations limit. Each year, local governments must establish an appropriations limit. So what this does is the appropriations limit creates a restriction on the amount of revenues which may be appropriated in any fiscal year. Only revenues received from tax proceeds are subject to the limit. This includes things like property tax, sales tax, Measure P, CFDs, gas tax, things like that. The limit is based on actual appropriations from a prior fiscal year in the 80s and is increased annually using specified growth factors, which include the changes in the cost of living and population. And these changes also must be approved by council on an annual basis. So it's a little hard to read in that color. What we're asking tonight is for you to choose the factors that will be increasing the limit by and to approve the appropriation limit. So each year we adjust two factors. The first factor is the change in California per capita cost of living, and that is 1.0369. And the second is either the greater of the city population or the county population, and the greater in this instance happens to be the city of Los Banos, and that's 1.0162. And we get all this information from the Department of Finance. In order to come up with this calculation, you take the change in California per capita COL, the first column there, and you multiply it by the change in population. So you're taking 1.0369 multiplied by 1.0162 for a total of 1.0537. This is then, you take the limit from the previous year, so in this case the 16-17 limit, which was $78,178,248, and multiply it by the 1.05. That gives us a new factor of $82,376,420. That's obviously well above what our tax proceeds are. If you look at the next slide, our new appropriations limit that we're asking for approval for tonight is the $82 million. Proceeds of taxes are $14 million. That gives us, that leaves us under the limit of $68 million. And so tonight, all we need to do is hold a public hearing, select the inflation and population by recorded vote, which we're recommending the California per capita cost of living and the city of Los Banos population, and adopt the attached resolution. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, do we have any questions from council? Mr. Freya.
Just, California says the cost of living is only, increase is only slightly over 1%?
Yes.
And so Sacramento's on a different planet than the rest of us. One more question, are there cities that actually have to pass this in order not to overspend themselves? Are there cities that rich?
Everybody legally has to pass this, yes. And if they do overspend, there's like a 2-year platform. So if you overspend in 1 year, you can use the additional proceeds in the second year. If you don't and you're still over, then you have to adjust your fees or adjust your taxes and return the money to the residents.
Are there cities?
There are cities in the past who have done that, yes.
Wow, in our dreams.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if anyone has any other questions, but I would move to...
Well, I have to open a public hearing.
Oh, it's a public hearing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
Got ahead of myself.
Any other questions from council? Okay, I would now move to open the public hearing to receive comment on City Council Resolution number 5869. Is there anyone who wishes to comment? Not seeing or hearing anyone, I will now close the public hearing, bring it back to council level. And Mr. Freya?
All right. I would move to adopt City Council Resolution number 5869, setting the tax-related appropriation limit in compliance with Proposition 4, Proposition 111 for the 17-18 fiscal year.
Mr. Silvera.
Second.
Motion by Faria, second by Silvera to approve City Council Resolution number 5869. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? None carried. Let's go on to item B, public hearing to receive public comment consideration 2017-2018 fiscal year budget. City Council Resolution number 5870, adopting the 2017-2018 fiscal year budget, including employee salary schedule, Division 4 of the City of Los Banos Policy and Procedures Manual and Capital Improvement Plan, and commit funds to public safety and fleet replacement. And go back to Sonia. Try that.
Thank you. Okay, tonight we're going to take a look at the fiscal year 2017-2018 budget. What we basically have for you is an overview of what we did at the workshop on May 30th. So we're going to start with the general fund summary, talk a little bit about the PERS update, special revenue funds, enterprise funds, internal service funds. We do have a new addition to the budget this year round, and there is a work in progress, we'll call it, capital improvement plan. And then finally, we'll end with the changes to the salary schedule. So beginning with general fund revenues, a detailed breakdown of the general fund revenues begin on page 48 of your budget in your workbook. The changes, we have not made any changes to the revenues since the budget workshop. So those are all the same that we previously discussed. Again, we do get our sales tax numbers from Uni Services. We are expecting a slight increase over last year of about $39,000. Property taxes we're also being conservative with, an increase of about $108,000. And licenses and permits, we're looking for, oh, I'm sorry, I skipped one. Other taxes, we're expecting a slight increase of $5,000. Licenses and permits, pretty consistent with where we are now, a little increase of $392. And then share revenues, you see a decrease of $77,000. That's one that we talk about a lot. Strike team is included in there, so when they go out in several strike teams for the year, we get a lot of revenue, but we never budget over $10,000. And then for charges for services, an increase of $100,000, and then other revenues, a decrease of $89,000. And some of that has to do with admin sites. We see admin sites decreasing, miscellaneous revenues. We do have a contract in there for the demolition of I Street with the DLA for $42,000. So that's a big decrease. We haven't built in the new contract because we don't have the numbers yet. So we'll be bringing that back to council at a later time. But we will see a change in that line item. So overall, for general fund revenues, we're estimated to bring in $14.7 million, which is an increase of approximately $88,000 over the current year. Moving on to expenditures, a summary of the increases over all throughout the budget include employee salaries and benefits. So we do have COLA increases citywide. We do have bargaining units that we are doing increases with, and those increases go from actually anywhere from $0 to 5% with the 1% pension swap, or 4% with the 1% pension swap. And the pension swap means that those employees are giving money back to pay towards their pension. So essentially, if they get a 5% increase and a 1% pension swap, they're only getting a 4% increase. And the same goes for the 4% increase with the 1% pension swap, they're getting a 3% increase. We also have increased unrepresented employees from 2.5% when we talked at the budget workshop up to 3%. We did some calculations and squeezed in an extra 0.5%. So all unrepresented employees will be getting 3% increase for the coming fiscal year. Minimum wage is set to increase in January of 2018, so we have built in for that increase, it'll go up to $11. And then finally, anybody who's eligible for step increases will continue to get those step increases, and that's another 5% increase to all eligible employees. There's overall increases to liability insurance throughout the budget, electricity and gas. Some of the specialty items that we've increased are consulting and technical services throughout different departments. These include things like a lobbyist to help us get funding from the state, organizational study citywide, a revenue survey, a reporting application that allows for us to report things like code enforcement, stray dogs, potholes, things like that. And then consulting or technical services for the master plan, general plan, and the downtown master plan within the Community and Economic Development Department. Facility maintenance, some of the big project items that we have are the college greens rental, the walls will be replaced in that facility. And then Fire Station 1 and 2 will be having some ADA compliant work done there, and that includes the doors and the walkways. And then finally, we have several vehicle and equipment purchases throughout the different departments. Some of these include a communication center radio upgrade for dispatchers, body cameras for any officers that don't currently have them. We are establishing a vehicle replacement fund for both police and fire. We will be purchasing additional turnouts for fire. There is several public works projects and equipment that will be purchased. There's West Eye and street rehab. And then they are getting a 3/4-ton pickup truck, a paint stencil bed, a backhoe, jackhammer, and a paving box. And these are just the items for public works that are considered general fund items. So those are some of the increases throughout the departments. Overall summary of the general fund. Again, we didn't make any changes to the expenditures with the exception of moving the COLA from 2.5% to 3%. So you'll see a slight increase in some of these departments. And we're expected to finish the year at expenditure-wise at $15,628,074. And as you can see, that's an increase over last year of $722,000. So I want to talk about one of our biggest expenses, which is PERS. And we've talked about this a little bit on how the rates are going to increase. This is actually an excerpt from CalPERS. They sent out a circular in January of 2018 letting us know, and I know it's kind of difficult to see. I did hand out the presentation, and there are some on the back if anybody wants to look at them. But CalPERS sent out this circular in January letting us know that our rates are going to increase. And just looking at it, you can see that it starts with the valuation date, and then it tells you the year that impacts. So usually the valuation date is 2 to 3 years prior to when it impacts. So the valuation date in this case is 2016, and the fiscal impact is 18-19. So we'll be seeing this impact in next year's budget. You have the normal cost for miscellaneous and the normal cost for safety, and then what they're calling a UAL payment for both miscellaneous and safety. ULA is unfunded accrued liability. In order to get the percentage that you need, you have to take the normal cost and add it to the ULA payment cost. And you have to do that for both miscellaneous and safety. So we took, like I stated the last time, we're taking the worst case scenario. So obviously that's the highest percentage. And for miscellaneous in the normal cost, that's 0.75%. And their UAL is 3%. So that means we would increase miscellaneous employees, Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, all by 3.75%. And safety, we would take 1.25% and add it to 3% and increase all their PERS costs by 4.25%. So this is where we derived the percentages from. We took that and applied it to what we have now. So the first column there, you see T1, T2, T3. Those are the different tiers that we have. So it's Tier 1, Tier 2, and then Tier 3 is PEPRA employees. And I did this for both miscellaneous and safety. And what we did here is our rate is 3.1968 for the 17-18 year. You can see it, this is just for Tier 1 employees. If we assume that an employee is making $50,000 a year, then just their PERS cost above any other benefits that they're receiving is going to be $15,984 in this 17-18 fiscal year. In 2022, that's going to increase to $27,484. That's an increase of $11,500 in that time frame, and that's for one employee assumed at $50,000. This is for miscellaneous. Safety, for one employee, the same assumption, $50,000, their rate is $20,533. In 5 years, it would be $33,033, and that's an increase of $12,500. So that's where we've been getting these numbers from. In your budget, you're going to see this summary chart, and I know it's hard to see up here, but I'm going to superimpose some of the numbers. It's on page 250, and this is the general fund's 5-year forecast. And what I wanted to point out was in 16-17, we are estimated, and this is, again, just for the general fund, we are estimated to spend $1.5 million on PERS costs alone. In 2022, That will increase at these rates that I just showed you to $3.7 million. That's an increase of over $2 million in the next 5 years.
Can I stop you for just a minute?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Silvera?
I want to go back to this previous slide. How many employees do we have in Tier 1?
I would say about 90% of the employees are in Tier 1.
So 90% of 160 employees, give or take?
Yeah, that's just an estimate. And in the 5-year plan that's on the next slide, it does build out who's in what tier. It doesn't show you how many people, and I can get that breakdown for you, but 90% are in Tier 1. I'd say probably less than 1% are in PEPRA, and the rest are in... We don't have any miscellaneous employees in PEPRA. I think we have one safety employee in PEPRA, and the rest would be in Tier 2. So anybody now that gets hired on that's been working in the PERS system is considered a classic employee. They would come in on Tier 2. If they haven't been with the PERS system before or anything that PERS accepts, so there's a couple other systems out there that PERS lets you be considered a classic member. If they don't, then they would automatically be put in Tier 3. Tier 1 is no longer in existence, basically. It's only for existing employees. Yeah.
Let me get your microphone.
She said from 2010 on.
Okay.
From year
All right.
2010 on.
All right.
And then really quick, you said the page number on this the next slide is what?
250.
Okay, thank you.
So again, it's a 5-year forecast, and what the forecast does show is all the revenues over the next 5 years. And we do have different increases based on historical factors. And then it also includes all the costs. There are 2 different breakdowns. So you could see one breakdown, and this is by expenditure, and the other breakdowns by department. But on this one, we do break out the pension or the personnel costs, which are all costs excluding PERS, and we separate out PERS there. And again, for this year, we're estimated $1.5 million for PERS. In 5 years, $3.7 million. And that's a difference of 2.1. And when I say this year, it's this current year, this 16-17, we're estimated to spend the 16-17, not the budget that we're talking about. That's 1.7. And again, like I stated before, this dollar amount here is just the general fund employees. It doesn't take into consideration all other funds. And obviously, there's lots of employees in other funds like CFDs, Measure P, all the enterprise funds, things like that. So that's our PERS cost. That's something we're taking a look at. We just attended a webinar on Monday. There wasn't any new news. We're still waiting for them to get a handle on the rates, hoping that they'll decrease or be someplace lower than what I've selected to use as my forecast. The good news is all the things that they recommended to cut costs we're either doing already, or it's something that we could look into, for instance, paying down the unfunded liability. And when you do that, for every $1 million that you pay down, you save about $650,000 to $950,000 in interest. However, when you do that, you're also taking money away from programs or other services that you might have. That being said, there is money available in the general fund that you can do that with, but you don't pay it 100% out of the general fund. It would be considered a loan, and all the other funds that are affected by PERS would have to pay that money back.
Mr. Freya?
Thank you. Well, as we're discussing the employees, I'm pleased to see we're able to go from 2.5 to 3 on the cost of living for unrepresented employees. Mr. Silva referred to calling employees miscellaneous. I've told staff how much I'm offended by that. It comes down from the state of California, which I don't like. When I refer to the non-represented employees, I prefer vital services. So we have public safety and vital services. That's the way I see it. And I'm very concerned about what PERS is doing to us. And even more concerned because the general fund, when you look at the general fund from one year to the next, isn't growing all that fast. And that's, which is going to take me to when we get to this next item on the agenda. And I've asked staff to look at financially what are the addition of new housing costing us, particularly with general fund expenditures. Just from the public safety, the police situation, where we had 1 to 750 police officers 10 years ago, and now we're down to 1 in 1,000. And I know we haven't added, our public works department has not added on. You guys have taken on a lot of extra work. So I know we're working very hard on this end and to fight this state of California PERS thing. As I said, I'm pleased to see the little extra 0.5%. The great line, better to light one candle than curse the darkness. So we're making some progress there. And whenever you hear me talk about unrepresented employees, you'll never hear me refer to you as miscellaneous. You're not. Miscellaneous is a drawer where you keep paper clips, as far as I'm concerned. So just want to let you know how I feel about that. Also, I feel about how hard our staff has been working to juggle these numbers, financial staff. It's not easy. And as I said, the general fund isn't growing as fast as I'd like to see it. The town is growing faster than the general fund right now. And you have to divide that out over the services you provide. And I can't support growth that we can't support. So, and everyone knows how much I support our staff at every level. I just had to make those comments. I figured it was the right time to do it. Thank you.
Mr. Silvera?
Sonia, what's our total unfunded liability?
20 million,
20 million.
approximately, yes.
So let's put that a different way, and we're funded as far as our liability with employees, as far as PERS and also our health insurance retirement. We're still, in the high 80s that we're?
With the current employees, I believe that on the average for the 3 tiers, I believe, yes, it's still in the high 80s. With the health insurance retirees, I'm not sure off the top of my head, but it's not the high 80s. I'd say it's a little bit lower, probably closer to the 70s.
70% funded.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you look at some of the surrounding people, our district is doing pretty well with that.
We are, yes.
Yeah, Las Banos is. Okay. Mr. Silvera, anything else?
Just, I guess, and so these numbers that you're showing, that assumes no new personnel.
Yeah, no, this is status quo. This is just assuming the people that we have now, they don't leave, they don't retire. I can't really factor in all these things.
Yeah.
So it's assuming that everybody stays there and they just grow with what their position allows for them to grow.
So it does take into consideration step increases?
It does.
It does, okay.
It does take into, and a slight COLA increase. So, like I said, I'm trying to do worst case scenario without pushing the envelope too far. So the increases are very minimal for the staff.
Very good, thank you.
Mr. Freya?
One more comment. You mentioned step increases, and I forgot to get that in. We went from 5 to 6, correct? Last year, a couple years ago? I was very pleased to see that. I would like to see a lot of step increases if we could, whatever we could afford. That's a good way to reward longevity. And in the teaching profession, it's 30 years. Ours goes all the way up. As a matter of fact, if you stay around long enough like me, they actually reward you for getting old. But I would like to reward longevity, and if we can look into that as we go forward in the future, I'd love to see more steps added. Just 6 steps. If someone's in a professional position, which everyone is, you're handling your job, you're doing it better, you're better at it every year, you're saving us more money because you're better at it and more efficient at it every year, you deserve to be rewarded. Even if you don't change positions, if you remain in that position, I think you need to be rewarded for staying in that position because you're getting better at it and you're serving all of us. So as time goes on, 7, 8, maybe even 10 steps, ideally, over a period of time, I would love to see us look into growing the steps for our employees. Thanks again.
So we did do longevity increases when we did add step 6, which was about 3 years ago, and then last year for unrepresented employees and for, I believe, dispatch and CSOs, we also did a longevity increase by taking that 6th step and moving it from a 2.5% increase to a 5% increase. So we do look on that when we're able to afford it.
Yes. It's a matter of...
Yes.
Wait.
Sorry. It's a matter of trying to make it all work. But once again, the general fund isn't growing as fast as our population.
That's correct.
And our population requires service from every single one of our employees. And so if the population grows and our employee base doesn't grow, that means more services from fewer employees, and we're not making enough money to pay for those services. And that bothers me.
Okay. Do we have any more questions about PERS? Okay. So just to finish up, balancing the budget, this is, again, the general fund. Our revenues are estimated to be $14.7 million. Expenditures are $15.6 million. That gives us a fiscal year deficit of over $888,000. Obviously, we'll be utilizing the reserves to balance the budget, but that being said, we do have one-time expenditures built in the budget of about $758,000, and that leaves us with an operating deficit of about $130,000, so it's not that horrible. So moving on from the general fund, summary of increases in other funds include Olivera Park rehab. That is to rehab the soccer fields at Olivera Park. City Hall expansion, we will be adding on to City Hall. The 2 offices in the administrative department will be expanded so we can fit more people in there and stretch out the floor for a little more space. Fire, as you approved at the last council meeting, will be updating their MDCs, or their mobile display computers. We do have money in there for services of buildings and structures, land purchase, costs associated with purchasing potential property for a new police station. Vehicles and specialized equipment. This is several vehicles and equipment throughout the Public Works Department that we discussed the last time around. Computer replacement. This is something that we do on an annual basis. The IT has citywide computers on a pretty regular schedule, and so we'll be replacing several computers again this year. And also we have network and server replacements. Again, Rick ensures that they're not going to blow up and leave us without any capabilities, so we try to replace them as they're going out of date. And then finally, professional services. We do have a couple of increases in professional services for RFPs and different projects that we will be doing throughout the city. So that's just an overall view of the other funds, specifically for fire, Measure P, and police, Measure P. The beginning fund balance for fire is $686,000. They're expected to bring in a little over $1.1 million in revenues and expend out almost the same amount of money, leaving their estimated fund balance at $707,000. They will, again, be making that large purchase out of this account, which is the MDCs, and that, I believe, is over $70,000. They also have permanent positions that are paid out of fire, and that includes 3 fire engineers, 4 firefighters, and the half of an admin clerk. And moving on to police, their fund balance is $2.1 million. Their revenues will be about $1.1 million. Their expenditures $736,000, leaving them with a $2.5 million fund balance. They also have permanent employees that are paid out of Measure P. Those include 3 police officers, 1 CSO, 1 crime analyst, and a half of an admin clerk. And obviously, we did the best that we could to get the employees out of Measure K so that this money can go back to infrastructure. The police have a healthy fund balance in there, and we're hoping to utilize that fund balance to help pay the bonds that we will need to build the new police station. So as little as we could touch that as possible, the better that it is. So moving on to the enterprise funds, beginning with water, the revenues are expected to be $6.3 million, expenditures $5 million, which gives us a net activity for the year of $1.2 million. They'll be doing things like purchasing water meters for new construction and to replace any old or broken meters. They will also be doing treatment and testing at their wells, be working on a master plan, and they also have vehicle purchases in the water department, and those include a 3/4 ton utility pickup, a SUV, and a purchase of a side dump truck. The wastewater revenues are $6.6 million. Expenditures are $13 million. That gives us net activity of $6.8 million, but it does have a healthy fund balance. So we are fine there. They're working on the master plan. The land purchase is for a new well site, not a well site, a storm drain basin, and that's the Nantes Storm Drain Basin. And the land purchase is estimated at $1.3 million. They also have specialized equipment that they will be purchasing, including a 3/4 ton pickup truck, a rotary mower, and a tail water pump engine. And then finally, solid waste. The revenues are $7.4 million. Expenditures are $9.1 million with a net activity of $1.6 million. We'll be working on the landfill closure project. This is the old bottle dump off of Mercy Springs. That's estimated to be about $1.8 million to close the dump. And then their specialized equipment include a GVWR truck chassis for $140,000 and a street sweeper for $270,000. Again, these are all items that we discussed at the workshop, but if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
You know, I'm always asked in the public, why are we building more houses? And in many ways, the budget reflects what we're doing, because 15 years ago, before anyone on this council even thought about running, and Mr. Faria and I are the longest or the oldest council members on here, these properties were approved far before we were even on the council. And the water and wastewater master plan was considered at that time. So the water usage and the wastewater was factored in when all those lots were annexed 15 years ago. So those developers have an agreement, and that agreement can't be changed from council to council. So they have a right to build on those 2,000 plus lots that are still available in Los Banos that were annexed over 15 years ago. And that had to be built into our water wastewater plan. So is there water available? Yes, according to the water plan. Is wastewater available? Yes, according to the wastewater plan. So the construction cannot be stopped of those homes unless they don't meet city code, city standards. So that's why we have the CFDs in place and the lighting and landscaping districts in place that can only be raised so much every year. And this is all a contributing factor to us maintaining our sewer ponds, making sure that we have water, wastewater, and it's functioning correctly, because those homes, and they've been mapped and they're already in progress. So I thought it was an appropriate time to bring that up based on the question that I keep getting over and over again. And there's still somewhere around 2,000 lots that can be built on in Los Banos that were annexed many, many years ago. Mrs. Lewis?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sonia, you know, this question may sound petty, but under the revenue, you spoke of purchase of water meters. In the fees that we collect from developers on these lots, is there something built in there to cover the cost of that, or is that something that the city has to endure as its own contained cost?
Each new home buys the water meter as part of the permit process.
Part of the permit process?
Part of the permit process,
Okay.
They do buy the water meters.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry, Sonia, go ahead.
Okay, moving on to lighting and landscape districts. There are 18 districts within the city. 5 districts are currently operating with a negative fund balance. We do have signs of improvement, which we've discussed in length of to the deficits, and council took action at the last council meeting to approve increases to 13 districts. Some of them were just cost of living increases, and some of them were the increases by either 5 or 10% what's allotted per district. And so that will help us climb out of deficits, and also the new development will also help us, as the mayor was saying, that the new areas within the city will be in a lighting and landscaping district, and those will help these fund balances. So the district projects for the year include Crest Hills Picnic Arbor and a lot of landscape and irrigation projects at Valley Meadows, Somerset, Stone Creek, the Rail Trail, and Jolyn Manor. Internal services, we have 3 internal services funds: the Fleet Maintenance Fund, Information Technology or IT, and Retirees Medical Health. The annual budget for fleet maintenance is $819,000. IT is $624,000. Again, this year they'll be replacing computers. That's cost is approximately $15,000. Network replacement is over $60,000. And we'll also be upgrading Microsoft Office, and that's at a cost of $41,000. And there's also a strategic plan in the budget for $25,000, and that's to let us know where we are technology-wise if we're doing what we need to be doing throughout the city. And then finally, retirees' medical health, there's $1.2 million annually. We fund retired employee benefits and OPEB ARC. And then finally, we have our salary schedule adjustments. Again, as I stated, you can see the salary schedule under the appendix tab in the budget. It begins on page 252, I believe, yes. Page 252. And the changes, you'll see the lines crossed off, and what those lines represent are the COLA increase for both non-represented employees and anybody who had an MOU. So you'll see the increase anywhere from the 3% to the 5%. This includes management and mid-management. Also, we are reclassing an HR technician to an analyst, promoting an accountant to a supervisor, funding a maintenance position that will be responsible for LLDs, adding a full-time CSO if the RAN funding is available, and we should know soon, and if it is, that position will be effective January 1st. And then we're reclassing a fire admin assistant to a coordinator, and increasing minimum wage from $11 or to $11 an hour, and that's also effective January 1st, 2008. 2018. Capital Improvement Plan is a new tab in our budget workbook. And if you turn to page 273, which is right after the tab, it starts with just a little overview of what the Capital Improvement Plan is, and it gives a summary to what the projects are throughout the city. The next few pages include summaries of one summary by fund and then separate summaries by departments. These summaries will show you what all the projects are, and it's a little hard to read. I apologize. We were having problems with our copy machine. We'll get it worked out before we print the final books. But it has the projects on here, whether or not they're funded. So you'll see a list of all projects that were asked for by the department head or by the city manager, and those are included by department. You'll also see the total cost of the project on this page, what fund is paying for it if the funding is available, or what fund is anticipated to pay for it. The prior year expenditures, if there are any, so if the project's already a work in process, then you'll see expenditures from the prior year. And then you'll see available funding. So if there is funding available, you'll see it throughout the 5 years on the summary page. If it's not, you'll just see a lot of zeros. For the most part, anything that's general fund, we're still working on that, so that will most likely continue to be part of the budgeting process, and the projects will be added as the priority, and as the priorities fall into line, and if the funding is available. Excuse me, I'm really having a difficult time speaking tonight.
Can I stop you just a minute? Mm-hmm. Mark, at some point, when we know what Measure P is basically going to produce for the local funds, I'd like at some point to get an estimate of what a street would cost over by the airport in the state streets to find out, because those poor people, they don't have sidewalks. And it's been a tough go for them. I don't know what it involves with city right of way and how that's done, because they have the curved area, not a curb.
Currently, we have the first 5 years of Measure V funds preliminary committed, and what we committed as a staff was improving the arterials and collectors in this town, in the city, because they're really in bad shape.
Yeah.
And not looking at a new project till we get some of them up to snuff. That's what we committed to. That doesn't mean that's what the priority has to hold, but that's what the budgeting process has done. Is we have, if you remember, next year we're doing design and preparing for about $1.2 million of street work. Then the third year we're preparing for about $1.4 million of street work for the 5th year of the Measure V, which leaves us like $1,800 left in that pocket. That's just staff's recommendation that is reflected in here.
Right.
We did concentrate, we didn't go to local streets at all. We wanted to use this money on arterials and collectors just as what we think technically and professionally is where we should put it. That's we're not setting
Of
the
course.
priority, but that's what
Yeah.
we set it to begin with. So
Maybe we could just talk sometime to find out what that would cost. Does that include the 20%?
Yes.
For the other modes of transportation, or?
the other modes of the 20% for the other modes of transportation will be used in all sidewalk replacements, in all our capital projects. We have a storm project that's going to use a lot of that.
Yeah.
We have a place road that will use a sidewalk component also. We will have no trouble using the 20%
Yeah.
first 5 years at all, or ever, really, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
And we will be working on a cost for that area.
Okay.
Very preliminary cost to let you know.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Silvera?
I guess, and I appreciate that you guys have done a lot of the hard work in figuring out that I really felt like the council should, at some point, we should have a workshop that we all talk about some of the priority areas of where we're going to spend Measure V money. As a supporter of Measure V, that's one of the things that I, when I went out and spoke to people and told them the benefits of it, it was that, part of it is that we were going to have a say in it. So at some point, I would like for that to happen.
We are going to be scheduling a workshop on all transportation needs and funding, hopefully before the end of the year. We won't be spending, except we spend a little bit on the set-aside money on the K Street storm drain, but we don't plan on spending any of the Measure V money till the spring. So there will be ample time during that workshop to change the direction. We needed to go some direction for the budget. That's all we were doing. And we based this on years-long list of arterials and collectors, and we inspected all of them and actually marked them in the field. So they're based on actual needs. It doesn't mean it has to be the needs that we go to, but we had to budget something there.
Not very good.
We needed a plan.
Yeah.
We need a plan, and yes, we are planning. I believe Alex can elaborate on that. We're planning on bringing something back to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mrs. Lewis?
Yes, piggybacking on Council Member Silvera's statement, I think it's important that any major projects that we're working on here in Los Banos, that the council has input. Staff works very hard to give us their recommendations, and that's generally where we go. But this Measure V money is something, at least from my perspective, that has been very important. I know that, we're looking at capital improvements, and when I see here the street projects and ADA sidewalk improvements, I have particular concern about Vermont Street, Pennsylvania, and Maryland, which are in my district. And these people have lived in these homes all of their lives. These homes were built for the dam, and they have lived without sidewalks, without curb cutouts, approaches to their driveways, and handicap access all of these years. And when I drive through there and I see children walking in the street to get to the park, to get to the school bus, that brings concern to me, because the streets are very narrow, and there's a lot of cars that are parked on those streets. So I would like to see some reconsideration for that area, to look at whether or not we can use any Measure V money to start somewhere to provide those amenities to that community. It's been a long time coming. When the city was floating in money back in the heyday of building in the early 2000s up to 2008-09, there actually should have been some provision made then to do that, but nothing was done. And now that we're going to have this 0.5% sales tax, it's time to look at that. And I'm not saying that the things that staff has brought up this evening aren't important and don't need to be done, but I'm looking at young people's lives and the community who has lived without the opportunity to walk on a sidewalk for many, many years. So that's my take on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Alex?
Thank you, Mayor. We really just see this CIP as a work in progress. This is really the city's first capital improvement plan, an effort to really plan to maintain the infrastructure for the long term. So we see this as a work in progress. We also recognize that we need some council direction in regard to Measure V projects and other capital projects. So we would anticipate a workshop sort of format to get that direction from the council to plug into the capital improvement plan.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Thank you. And thank you, Mark, for getting us some kind of estimate of what a street would cost. Okay. All right. Sonia, sorry.
That's okay. So, as Alex said, it is a work in process. We have all the items that we considered from department heads, and again, we funded out the ones that we could. If you take a look at this, this does take into consideration all the items that are included in your budget, including being able to set aside $100,000 for both police and fire for vehicles. You will see a lot of zeros or a lot of dashes, which are in essence the zero, throughout anything that's funded for the general fund. The other items, Public Works has a pretty good schedule for projects as well as for equipment replacement, including equipment needed for the projects or regular replacement of their pickup trucks that they use for everyday work. So this is basically just a summary. Once you get past the summary pages with all the numbers, there's a part beginning on page 281 that's titled CIP Funded Project Descriptions. These descriptions are only for the items that are in the 17-18 budget. They are not talking about everything that's on the summary sheet. We will be putting together a separate CIP book that will include detail descriptions for all projects, whether or not they're funded or not. So we'll hope to bring that to you maybe by the time we do our workshop or right after, so we can include those items. So that is a new item for us this year. And pretty much that's all we have for the budget. Tonight I'm asking for you to conduct a public hearing, adopt a resolution approving the 17-18 fiscal year budget as submitted. And just so you're aware, this resolution will also commit $200,960 in funding, $100 for police vehicles, and $100,960 for fire. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. If not, I'll open up the public hearing on City Council Resolution number 5870. Is there anyone who wishes to speak?
My name is Mike Seba. I'm a resident of Los Banos. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm here representing myself and other miscellaneous employees, some of whom are here this evening. We have been informed that a 3% cost of living adjustment, or COLA, is being proposed. At the May 30th budget study session, we asked that recommended promotions of public work staff be authorized and for an equitable salary adjustment of 5%. Here's what we heard and took away from that meeting. Number one, the proposed organizational study appears to be aimed at Public Works. Most of the other city departments will have already been reorganized. The same strategy that organized other departments could be enlisted to organize Public Works and allow organizational study expenses to be repurposed. Number two, the Finance is requesting one promotion. Human Resources is requesting one reclassification. Fire Department is requesting one reclassification. All three positions are newly created and come with significant salary increases. Number three, all proposed Public Works promotions are being excluded. Some staff has been stalled in their current positions since the economic downturn. Employees are working above their classification willingly, for the most part, with a sincere hope of advancement and yet denied. Honor and authorize the Public Works promotions along with the three miscellaneous promotions. Number four, the city staff who have received a 4% COLA with a 1% give back are receiving a 5% increase in base salary. An employee's base salary is the number used in the formula for retirement. Prior to 2009, the city paid the entire 8% employees' portion of PERS. In 2009, city employees were asked to take an 8% reduction in their paycheck and resume paying the employees' portion of PERS in the form of a giveback when the economic downturn occurred. The 8% giveback was a salary increase issued in the 1980s in place of a COLA for 2 years in a row. The salaries of miscellaneous employees are a fraction of expense for salaries on the general fund. The enterprise and landscape and lighting district funds support the majority of miscellaneous salaries. The utility and district rates have COLA increases programmed into them. Several employees did not receive the 2% salary adjustment in 15-16. The top step adjustment in 16-17 has yet to be realized by some employees, not yet topped out. When referring to all, these adjustments should not be considered as COLA increases when referring to all miscellaneous employees. As such, in the last 3 years, miscellaneous have received a 0% COLA in 15-16, a 2.5% COLA increase in 16-17, and the 3% increase currently proposed in 17-18. In the same 3-year period, the base salaries of some staff have increased 12 to 15%, and their take-home will increase 9 to 12%. That result does not support salary equity or make miscellaneous employees whole. We believe our request is a just consideration and a reasonable business decision. Number one, we ask that you authorize a 5% COLA increase. Number two, we ask that you authorize the recommended promotions of public work staff, just as you are preparing to do for finance, human resources, and the fire department. I would like to leave you with this thought. Absolute potential produces premium results with adequate incentives. We believe we have been professional and respectful in our presentations. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Is anyone else who'd like to speak to the public forum? Not seeing or hearing anyone or public hearing. I will now close the public hearing and bring it back to council level. Do I have a motion? Ms. Silvera.
Let me get my agenda back, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt City Council Resolution number 5870, adopting the 2017-18 fiscal year budget, including employee salary schedule, Division 4 of the Los Banos Policy and Procedures Manual, and capital improvement plan, and commit funds for public safety fleet replacement.
Okay. Do I have a second? Do I have a second? Ms. Johnson?
I second that.
Okay. Motion by Silvera, second by Johnson. Mr. Freya?
Discussion, request an amendment to the motion.
Go ahead.
We adopt Resolution 5870, but also include direction to staff to continue pursue financial feasibility of increasing the miscellaneous, as the state states. I will call, and I will use that because that's the state term. Miscellaneous employees' salary, to see if we can find some money in the budget to increase this a bit more, since they've taken a big hit, and since they took a big hit.
Okay. I'm trying to get Robert's Rules of Order correctly.
I think Mr. Silvera has to accept the amendment. Is that correct, Mr. Vaughn?
Go ahead, Mr. Vaughn.
Actually, the group has to vote on the amendment.
Vote the first one, yeah.
That's correct. Okay.
No, they vote on the amendment.
Okay. First. Okay.
Does he need a second on that amendment?
Yes. He does. Is there a second, Mrs. Lewis?
I'll second.
Okay. So the amendment is going to be voted on first, and that amendment is for staff to continue to research to see if there is, if further funds, if future funds can be found?
If present funds can be found.
If present funds can be found.
If it's financially feasible to increase salaries and increase cost of living benefits to the miscellaneous employees.
Okay. So, and I have a motion by Faria, second by Lewis, correct? Correct. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose?
No.
I think you need a roll call.
Yeah, I'm going to do a roll call. Director Maloney?
Faria,
Yes.
Johnson, Santos,
Yes.
Lewis. Silvera,
No.
Valenta.
Yes. Okay.
Now you have to vote on the motion.
Now we have to vote on the motion.
As
from-
amended.
As amended.
Yes, okay. I don't want too many people speaking here. All right. So now we're going to vote on the motion as amended, as the amendment passed. And that was, okay, so now Mr. Silvera made the motion. And so it's still a motion, or that's already been done?
There's an amended motion on the table.
Yes.
It's amended motion, so all you have to do now is vote.
Vote on the
Okay,
amended motion.
all right, just want to make sure.
Mr. Mayor, if I could have 1 minute.
You
for
could.
To comment.
Yes.
I'll look all you guys in the face and want you to understand that I do appreciate the work that you guys do. And I do agree with you that, when we did pass a utility increase back some years ago, that there was COLAs built into it. Where I guess my frustration is that we had a budget workshop, you guys came and spoke, and then, and I get it, we're doing the people's business in public, but I just wish that these things would have been ironed out ahead of time. And I don't know who to blame for that. I'm just frustrated with it because I've not seen a list of what positions Public Works would like to see be increased. I've not seen that list. And at the same time, we go through a presentation and we have and I get it. I'd like to see the numbers worked both ways on those on PERS increases. And when I'm looking at the overall fiscal health of the city, and we're staring down what it's going to cost us to do business down the road, where are we going to be? Because here's the reality, guys. The revenues aren't growing at the pace that it's costing us for employees. So do you get rid of employees? I don't know the answer. And so all these things weigh on me when you're trying to make a decision based on what is the fiscal health of the city. And I would love to be able to say, hey, man, let's give everybody more. But at the end of the day, we have to make smart business decisions. And I'm sorry, and I'll have that conversation with each one of you individually if you'd like to on where I'm coming from. And I don't want you to think for a second you guys and gals are not as important. I think that you guys are the unsung heroes. Public safety, who I have just a bunch of admiration for, they get a lot of the glory. But at the end of the day, man, let's be real about it. When I turn my water on at my house, I want it to come on. When I flush my toilet, I want it to flush away. And because you guys do such a good job of it, we don't think about you as often. So it's just frustrating that, like, again, I want to do what's right by you guys and gals, but it's frustrating to me that it's like, where was this? This is, to me, when we had our budget workshop, that's where it should have been said, hey, I'm not going to support a budget unless it has this in it. So we go along and staff comes up and they go from 2.5% to 3%. And obviously, you guys aren't happy with that. You'd like to see a little bit more. I got to tell you, 3% is 3%. It's still 3% more than what you're getting today. And I know that's going to sound kind of harsh, and some people are not going to like that. But I don't know. I look at it. I'm a dairyman. I don't get 3% increases. I get what's left over at the end of the month. That's how it works. And so maybe my mindset is different. I've never worked for a government organization, and I do understand the fact that you guys don't get bonuses when we have a really great year. You pay your employees by the form of their salary and their benefits. So it's tough for me. I just don't like I don't like that all of a sudden it gets thrown and we're going to change and go back on a budget that that's been worked on by a lot more people than just us for months now, that this budget's been worked on. We went through a budget workshop, and now we're here to approve a final budget that a lot of work and time has went into, and now we're going to say, hey, let's go back to try to find more money. I don't know. I just have issues with that. I'm sorry. And again, I really hope you guys take my comments. I do appreciate the work you do. I really do. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Lewis?
Yes, if my understanding is correctly, I don't think that this council is voting for some hard, fast rule that this money is going to be available. I think what we're asking is that staff look, and if it's feasible, then we'll do it. If it's not, then we can't. So I don't see that the motion that we're putting before the council at this dais tonight is one that's hard and fast. It's just that we're asking for our staff to look again. I was a government employee all my life, and at the bottom of the rank, as just an everyday employee, my raises weren't always comparable to other staff within the county that I worked for, and a lot of times it didn't make me happy, but I accepted it and I did the work that I was required to do. But tonight, I don't think that what the vote is before this dais tonight is an unreasonable request, and it doesn't mean that it may happen, but at least we're trying to make consideration that we will look at it, and that's how I understand it.
Can I make a comment on things that we have done in the past? So yes, everybody has been working on this budget very hard. We brought to you the best that we had. We can make cuts in other places, take things out of the budget to put more things in the budget. My suggestion, however, would be, and what we have done in the past, is to approve the budget and take a look at this at mid-year. If revenues come in different than we're expected, or expenditures are coming in lower than expected, then maybe at that time we look at making a change. We have done it in the past. That would just be my recommendation.
And I think that's what we're saying tonight.
No, my understanding and my direction that I feel I have is that I'm to go back and review my numbers in the budget. And I can tell you with what we have in there now, we just this is a $880,000 deficit for just the general fund, $130,000 if you take out the one-time fees. So anything that you add, any increases that you add, whether they're promotions, whether it's a bump in salary, is going to increase that deficit. It's one-time money. Those aren't things that I can cut from unless we cut from services or we cut from employees. So my recommendation would be to approve this budget tonight and ask us to review it in mid-year.
And then I misunderstood. I thought that we were going to go back and we're going to continue to look, but we still have to see how this budget is going this year. And so I would be comfortable with approving the budget, but then, as you say, mid-year review, and you see how expenditures are going. It's important right now, I think, to get a budget, because we have to have this done before July 1st, or we have to go through a whole different set of paperwork and approve to keep the city going. Am I correct?
Yes, we'd either have to have a special meeting, or we can't pay any bills after July 1st if this is not approved before then. Correct.
And I think it would be prudent to approve this budget, but then as things go on, how can we then better serve the employees if there are savings at mid-year? So, Mr. Faria.
My motion was not to wait for a mid-year review.
No.
My motion was to approve this budget tonight so we can keep the city functioning, and to direct staff to immediately go to work on trying to find some more money. And that motion was made, seconded, and approved.
Okay. Well,
that amendment was approved.
I understand.
So I would call the question now on this item.
We will call the question. But Mr. Faria, let me clarify just a little bit. If to work on this and to immediately try and find money, would that include, as the budget expenditures start to go on, to see as the year progresses?
Well,
I mean, they can continue, they can start to work on it, but I mean, to see how things are going with the expenditures too.
I don't want to have to wait for mid-year budget review. That's 6 months down the road. That's too long.
Yeah.
And, if it takes more work, if some more work can find us some more money, let's do it. My goodness.
Okay, but if they don't know, right, what I'm getting at is, and I'll vote on your motion.
I'm sorry, Mayor, let me clarify and be very clear.
Okay.
My motion was very clear.
Okay.
And my motion was to approve this budget. That will keep the city running. My motion was also to include directing staff to, once again, re-examine those funds, not just the general fund, all the funds, and see if we can find some more money to bring a little more equity to the, as the state says, miscellaneous employees.
And I don't have a problem supporting your motion.
Right. Well,
I want to support that. Yeah.
It's already voted on. You already did.
Yeah.
So what I'd like to do is go ahead and vote on, and call the question on this item right now so we can get this done, move on.
Okay.
Because
but you're not pinning employees to a time that
there's no time. I haven't set any time certain.
Okay.
But
that's all I want to know.
would hope we wouldn't have to wait for a mid-year budget review when we give employees direction for something.
That's all I want to hear. That's all I want to hear, Mr.
And
Freeman.
if I may make a few more comments. Mr. Silvera, I've been on your side. I grew up with two parents from two different sides of the world. That's why I'm where I am right now.
Okay.
Excuse me, if I may still have the floor.
Sure, go ahead.
My father was a tradesman like his entire family, and the way you show appreciation for tradesmen is you pay them. I'm a tradesman. I'm a musician, a professional musician. When called upon as a musician, I do what I'm called upon to do, and I expect to be paid when I do it, unless I do it for a church or a public organization. That was my father's side. My mother's side were all self-employed farmers. And it's a whole different way of looking at the world, because you don't live in a monthly with dairy. You get cash check with dairy, but the government controls what a dairy makes. So now with the dairy system, but I understand what it's like to be on both sides. And in this situation, we're dealing with government employed tradesmen. And all I'm asking, and all my motion was, and the council approved it, was to go ahead and approve the budget, and then let's look and see if we can find some money somewhere else, as I mentioned, in the public works and the enterprise funds. And I get a little emotional because it's been a tough go. I mean, if anyone who was here 10 years ago, 8 years ago, when we slashed and burned public safety, well, the public safety took a slash and burn cut, but public works took an attrition cut. We haven't refilled. We haven't refilled all those. And our city has grown by 10%. I don't think any of our staff anywhere in our city has grown by 10%. So we're all absorbing more work. Our employees are absorbing more work. Our general fund is not growing nearly fast enough. But let's see if we can find some money in these other funds, something we can do. And I know that everybody's working hard. And when it comes to hard work, nobody knows hard work better than I do. I'd sit down and tell you stories for hours of how I got through college with 5 jobs in a full-time university. But all the while trying to scratch a living out of a piece of dirt with a father who couldn't work. So I know what hard work is. So what I'm trying to do is let's adopt the budget, keep the city running. That's our responsibility, and it's also our responsibility to see what we can do to find some more money for public works, so that your toilets still flush, and your water still runs, and your streets are constantly being patched, because somebody didn't plan properly when they built the city, and built all the cities, and didn't plan for all the financing that we need, and hopefully Measure V will help us out a little bit. But anyway, I would call the question.
Okay, I still have some more comments.
All right.
Okay. Mrs. Santos, do you want to speak?
Yes, please. I'd like to first say, please excuse my ignorance as the newest council member. I am still coming into all this. And I would just like to ask, if we're at the review of the mid-year budget, if we were to find money for our unrepresented employees, would that wouldn't change until the next year, correct? Still?
No, we can adjust the budget at any time. So if we went to the mid-year, we usually bring the mid-year around February or March because we get property taxes in January. However, we've done it in the past where we make it retroactive to January. If that requirement was brought forward, we would ask for the same thing. We wouldn't go back to July 1, but we would try to go back to January if it was a possibility. But I would like to remind you that miscellaneous employees include more than Public Works, and it includes more than just the enterprise funds. It does include the general fund, and that's where our biggest problem is right now. That includes myself, that includes my finance staff, that includes community and economic development, it includes recreation, it can, and on and on and on. It includes part of the police department, it includes part of the fire department. The 3% puts them at the same level as what we gave the fire without the 1% pension swap. And just a clarification on some of the comments that were made, miscellaneous employees have been given increases over the last 3 years. It was stated that they weren't. They were given a 2% increase, and then we also reinstated steps. So some people got anywhere from a 7% increase to, from a 2.5% increase if it was longevity step, to a 7.5% increase the first year. And then they were given a 2.5% increase the next year, which again was a 2.5% to up to a 7.5% increase. And this year it's anywhere from a 3% increase to an 8% increase. That puts them on the same playing field as the fire department. The fire department was given a 4% increase each year with the 1% pension swap. So anybody in the fire department either got the 3% essentially or an 8% because some of them are still stepping. The same goes for the police department. They were given a 5% with the 1% pension swap, so they got 4%, anywhere from 4% up to the 9% because they are still stepping as well. These are some of the things we did. There is also a bargaining group that was given a one-time compensation. It's not an ongoing cost and received 0% COLA this year and 0% COLA last year. So everybody is on different playing fields, and that's the path that we decided to take, but we did it for the best route financially for the city. And that being said, yes, I do realize that there are items and there are employees that are receiving reclasses this year. But if we go back and we look, those departments have waited their turn. We have added positions to Public Works, several positions over several years, over the last 3 to 4 years. We've added positions to the police department. We've reclassed positions in the police department. We've swapped part-time positions for full-time positions in the Public Works department. So essentially, what we're doing in this budget is just another juggling act that we've done over the past several years. It just happens to be those departments' turn. They have been waiting patiently, just like other things are still waiting on the back burner, but we have to juggle. We can't give it all to one person every single time. So I believe this is a fair and balanced budget, and again, I would ask for you to, yes, fine, make that recommendation, but please allow us to do that at mid-year. My numbers in 1 month, 2 months aren't going to be any different than they are now unless I take something out of this budget. So my recommendation is to allow me to see what the revenues are coming in. Hopefully the projections are higher than what I anticipate, and therefore I can add something at mid-year.
Okay, I would just also like to say that as I do feel for the unrepresented / miscellaneous employees, I would like to stick with what we have, and I'm not sure if that's the proper phrasing for that, but I would like to stick with the current budget and once again review at mid-year. So let's put that out there.
Okay, Mr. Silvera?
Mr. Mayor, I just, the way that I took it just sounds like we have two different, what your thoughts are on looking at it at mid-year. That's not what Mr. Faria had.
There's no timeline.
There's no timeline.
There's no timeline.
It just, in the beginning, it seemed like it didn't seem to me, and maybe I misunderstood, Mr. Faria, that I thought that you didn't want to pass the budget currently. And so I think that we need to pass our budget. I think it's important that we pass our budget. So that's, maybe I misunderstood. I didn't think he wanted to pass the budget tonight. So
I just, if I may, Mayor? Mr. Mayor?
I have the city manager who would like to speak, and then, sure.
Thank you, Mayor. Really, the move from 2.5% to 3% really represents what we at the staff felt we could support and recommend to the council. So if we felt we could support the 5%, that's what we would have built in the budget. But just not to prolong the question, but it's really why we came back with that 3%, because that's what we felt we could support and what the city could fiscally support as well, but not only for now, but for the long term. The other thing to consider in regard to the organizational study and to consider whether or not we punt this down the road to mid-year, depending on when we start that effort, we could have the results of that organizational study, which will be organizationally focused, not just on the Public Works Department. I think there's efficiencies throughout the organization. I think there's opportunities to do things differently throughout the organization. I think there's the opportunity to engage employees throughout the organization. So it's not just focused on the Public Works Department. So I think those results could be available to implement mid-year as well. So that's the other thing to consider as the council considers the question.
Okay, again, there was no timeline stipulated. And I want to get a good read on it too, because if there's something out there, there's something out there. And I think that's what the employees want. Okay. Mr. Freya?
Yes, so I want to, I'd like to move.
We can call for the question.
Yes,
Let's call for the question. Okay,
like
everything has been amended, everything has been done. All we have to do is vote.
And I just want to make one more comment in that I'm very pleased to see the conversations.
Okay.
This is the way good government works, is the conversation. When the conversation stops, and some of us know some times in our history in this city when the conversation was stopped and no one wanted to hear anything from anyone. And that's always counterproductive, and it's toxic. And right now we're talking and working together because we are working together. It's a symbiotic situation between the citizens, the council, the staff. And so I'm pleased to see that. So call for the question, Mr. Mayor.
I think we've got clear direction now, and I think Sonia has that too. Because we want to get a right read on it. Okay. Roll call vote with the amendment. Lucy?
Faria.
Yes.
Johnson Santos.
Yes.
Lewis. Yes. Silvera.
Yes.
Valolta.
Yes. Okay. Motion carried unanimously. As Mr. Freya said, discussion is always healthy. I think, was that the right interpretation?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay, good. I got it right. All right. Okay, let's go on to item C, public hearing. To receive public comment and consideration of an amendment to Article 41, Chapter 3, Title 9, Special Events Ordinance and Special Event Fees. Community and Economic Development Director Elms.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this item is being brought back to you. Back on 2 weeks ago, June 7th, the City Council waived the first reading and introduced ordinance number 1157 by title. At that meeting, a motion of intent was approved to adopt resolution number 5865 to establish a policy regarding waiver or partial waiver of departmental service charges. Also at that meeting, staff advised that a resolution would be brought forward at tonight's meeting establishing specific rates for departmental service charges fees. I'm going to pass through these slides. These were the stakeholder meetings that were held. The Planning Commission provided a recommendation to the City Council. I think the batteries are dying in this.
You want us to change it?
It's okay. I just got to keep. So the Planning Commission approved a recommendation to the City Council back in May of 2017, and I just want to summarize for you the ordinance amendment. It provides the ability to grant a waiver or a partial waiver of the departmental service charges. These are actual costs that departments incur.
I'm sorry, can I stop you for a minute?
Sure.
Since we're talking about a special event fee, Mr. Freya had punched his button and he just walked out. He has a conflict of interest because his wife is the executive chamber manager.
I apologize.
That's for the record.
Thank you. So these are actual costs that the departments incur in connection with each special event. They include fire safety, traffic and/or pedestrian controls, closure of streets or intersections, the diverting of traffic, salaries of city personnel involved in admin or coordination of city services, the equipment that's used, materials and supplies, cleanup and restoration, or related city costs such as fringe benefits or employee overtime. So these are actual costs that these special events incur on the city for specific departments. So the policy that is established within the resolution and the ordinance, the proposed ordinance, would allow for a waiver or a partial waiver of departmental service charges. The purpose is to set forth criteria for City Council consideration of a waiver or partial waiver. Right now, in our existing ordinance, it doesn't allow for the council to consider a partial waiver or any waiver at all. Only applicable to major events. These would be for parades or similar type events. Based on those stakeholder meetings, the consensus of the group was that the major events were those organizations were being burdened with the cost of these special departmental service charges, and that the minor events, those charges were not as huge of a cost factor for them. It also requires to meet certain criteria, and this would be subject to discretion of the City Council and sole discretion of the council. The criteria established is that it would be not-for-profit organizations serving primarily the citizens of Los Banos with tax-exempt status. They'd need to be open to public, free of charge. These are the criteria that the events would need to follow. They'd be active service to the community for 1 year prior to the event, so it couldn't be any new event could ask for a waiver or a partial waiver. They'd need to be in service. A major event that has occurred at least one time previously with the special event. You can't just make up an event and then decide that you're going to ask the council for a waiver or partial waiver. You need to be established and have that event at least one time. It has to have a benefit or enhance the business community, provides cultural enrichment. The event would be of citywide significance. It would not be a religious or political event, and it could be cultural, social, or recreational benefit to the community, and then any other criteria as established by the City Council. Exempt events that are provided in the resolution that's been provided to you are 3 events specifically. It's the May Day Parade, the Veterans Day Parade, and the Christmas Parade. And this was based on the recommendation from the stakeholders group. This would also be subject to no intensification of these events. So should these events decide to change their parade routes and intensify their use, extend their parade route, then they would not be eligible for that exemption no longer. They would need to ask either the City Council to consider that intensification, or they'd need to pay that difference. So the request for the waiver would be consisting of filling out a letter of a request to the City of Los Banos, and then the City Council would have the sole authority to approve the fee waiver or partial waiver based on the established criteria that I previously mentioned. The departmental service charges are based on the size and intensity of each individual event. So each individual event is different, and it also is based on whether we get vital volunteers that can help with traffic control. Organizations were concerned during our stakeholder meetings regarding the unknown cost associated with departmental service charges. That was the biggest criticism I think that we heard from the stakeholders group, from the various organizations that came, was that unknown cost was very hard for those organizations to budget from year to year. So what staff has done is we're proposing to provide a base cost for 3 categories. And these are basically the major categories that we've seen, taking all of the previous special events that we've had in the past 2 years and breaking them down. They're either a religious procession, a street closure, which would be like our street fairs, Dad's Night Out, any type of 3-block closure or less, or a parade. Now, the religious processions, that would be no more than 1.25 miles, and I do want to clarify that's one way. That's one-way direction, and that's really using the DES parade as the standard. because that is a long-standing parade, and the Guadalupana Parade similarly follows that same route as well, although it is only in one direction, but has about the same intensification to the city. And then the parade is based on the May Day route, and using that as the standard of where parades would need to be, as that is one of the less intense parades that is held within the city. So these are based on historical standards and operations of events, and any deviation from these standards would require a cost recovery contract signed by the organization to recoup full cost of departmental service charges. The fiscal impact of this would be that the city would absorb the cost of the May Day Parade, the Veterans Day Parade, and the Christmas Parade. This would be approximately $6,700. So public comment, public hearing notices were published in the Los Banos Enterprise on May 26th, and as of today's date, no comments have been received. So staff is recommending that the City Council would waive the second reading and adopt ordinance number 1157 relating to special events, and adopt resolution number 5865 establishing a policy regarding waiver or partial waiver of departmental service charges, and then last, adopt resolution number 5871 to establish departmental service charge fees relative to special events. And that concludes my presentation. I'm here to answer any of your questions.
I am so glad to bring this to conclusion. It's been a long go, and I think we've come up with an equitable solution. Mrs. Lewis?
Yes, Stacy, on Exhibit A of our packet under departmental service fees, you give the three categories of examples of what a religious procession, street closure, and a parade would be.
Yes.
And under two of the categories, you have like 1.25 miles one way for a charge. How is the city going to calculate if a parade is, a religious procession is maybe a little bit more than that, it's 2 miles? Are we going to charge them the $317 and then look at incremental charges thereafter?
Yes, absolutely. So then at that point, we would get together with the police department and determine, well, because of the now extra length of the parade, does that mean that they need extra police officers? Excuse me, when I say parade, I meant procession. Yeah. So related to that procession, if they need additional officers, if they're planning on being able to fill that void with vital, then there would be no extra cost because volunteers could help cover that particular event. So it just depends on how it exceeds and what the police department feels that they would need to do to provide services for that event.
Okay. And I'd like to direct this question to our city attorney. Without having specifics about what the charge would be, do we need to have some sort of language in there to indicate that after the base rate that would be charged for these particular events, that a calculation would be based on what the excess would be?
I'd let Stacy answer that. It's the policy. If it's clear as it's written, it doesn't need to be changed.
So with an attachment, Exhibit A, it does provide that any intensification from the standard categories shall require the special event applicant to enter into a cost recovery contract with the City of Los Banos to recoup the full cost of departmental service charges. So that is provided to be able to recoup those costs in addition to whatever is set as the standard.
So again, I'm understanding that these examples that you have given are considered the standard.
They are.
Okay.
Also, I do want to note that those fees would be subject to an annual cost of living increase as approved by the City Council, so that those fees wouldn't just stay stagnant, but as the city's costs increase with the cost of living, for our various departments, that those costs would also increase with that.
But the three events would still stay
Yes, those
covered.
would still be absorbed by the city.
Okay, all right.
But the cost of living rates would change based on these three events.
So then whatever percentage that is, then each year we would increase the 317 by, say, 3%. And that would need to be factored in for the organizations as they're budgeting their annual budgets.
So are we telling the public in this particular ordinance that, wait a minute, I see here, above it, shall have an annual cost of living increase. Okay. As long as we let them know that there possibly could be a cost of living increase, we don't have to say what the percentage is. Okay, I have no other question. Thank you.
Okay. But again, the three events that we talked about, May Day, Veterans, and Christmas, would be covered.
Yes, those would continue to be absorbed.
And we just reflect in Sonia's budgets to say what the liability was to the city if it increased.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. All right. All right. Let's go to the public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on ordinance number 1157, resolution, City Council Resolution number 5865, and City Council Resolution number 5871?
Bertha Varela, Los Banos Chamber of Commerce. 3 years later, here we are, and I feel much better about this, and I appreciate the work. The compromise, I think, or the partnership that's kind of gone in and putting together that stakeholders group was a really great idea. I think you got all of the organizations where it wasn't just one or two that were voicing their opposition. So I appreciate it. I just want to let you know. And it'll be nice to move forward without the sweats every time I try and put on an event, not knowing what the cost will be. Thank you.
It hasn't aged you. You're fine.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Good colorist.
All right. Would anyone else like to speak at a public hearing on the ordinance and the two resolutions? Not seeing or hearing anyone, I'll now close the public hearing, bring it back to council level. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do three motions, or one second reading and adoption for ordinance number 1157. And I would have the person who's making the motion please read those again. So, Mr. Silvera.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to waive the second reading of ordinance number 1157, amending section 9-3.4111 of Article 41, Chapter 3 to Title 9 of the Los Banos Municipal Code relating to special events on public property.
Okay, do I have a second? Mrs. Santos.
I second that.
Okay, it's been motioned by Silvera, second by Santos to approve ordinance number, or excuse me, to waive the second reading of ordinance number 1157. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? None carried. Mr. Silvera.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance number 1157 as read by title.
Mrs. Santos.
Second that.
Okay, it's been motioned by Mr. Silvera, second by Mr. Santos. Mr. Santos for the adoption of ordinance number 1157. Lucy?
Korea, Johnson Santos,
Yes.
Lewis. Yes. Silvera.
Yes.
Peralta.
Yes. Mr. Silvera?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt City Council Resolution number 5865, establishing a policy regarding waiver or partial waiver of departmental service charges relative to special events.
Mrs. Santos?
Second that.
Okay, motion by Silvera, second by Santos to approve City Council Resolution number 5865. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? None carried. Mr. Silvera?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve City Council Resolution number 5871, establishing departmental service charge fees relative to special events.
Mrs. Santos?
Second.
Okay, motion by Silvera, second by Santos to approve City Council Resolution number 5871. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? None carried. Okay, item 10, I have a conflict because I own property within 500 feet of the designated area. And Mr. Vaughn?
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor.
Freudian slip.
Yes, it's the same thing. I represent the applicant as a private client, and therefore I must step down from this item as well.
You're welcome, Mr. Attorney. Okay. All right. So we will both be leaving, and Mr. Mayor Pro Tem Silvera will be sitting here, and he will
involving recusals.
All right, item number 10, consideration of approval of a general plan amendment 2016-02, zone change 2016-02, and mitigated negative declaration MND, state clearinghouse number 2017-02-1033. The project proposal is for the general plan amendment and rezone of 7 parcels currently designated as professional office PO into medium-density residential R2 on 1.2 acres and to subdivide 7 existing parcels into 11 parcels for the development of 11 detached single-family residential units. The project site is located on the east side of Delaware Avenue between Pine Street and Madrone Street, more specifically identified as Assessor's Parcel Number 027-214-001 through 007. The Sunset Hills Development. Public hearing was closed on April the 19th. I'm going to go ahead and read the other ones now so that we don't have to worry about reading them again later. Item 10A, City Council Resolution Number 5857, approving a mitigated negative declaration, State Clearinghouse Number 2017-02-10033, and mitigation monitoring reporting plan for Sunset Hills Development located on the east side of Delaware Avenue between Pine Street and Madrone Street, more specifically identified as Assessor's Parcel Number 027-214-001 through 007. Item 10B, City Council Resolution Number 5858, approving a general plan amendment number 2016-02 to redesignate properties identified as Assessor Parcel Number 027-214-001 through 007 from Professional Office PO to Medium Density Residential R2. And then item 10C, Ordinance Number 1154, amending the official zoning map by rezoning property located on Assessor's Parcel Number 027-214-001 through 007 from Professional Office P-O to Medium Density Residential R2. And we will go to Director Elms.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. So just a little bit of background on this particular project. It is a continuation from back in April of 2017, where the City Council held a public hearing and closed the public hearing that date regarding this item. Then at that meeting, the City Council directed staff to provide a response to the Los Banos Unified School District's comment letter. Then on June 7th, the City Council approved a motion of intent to adopt resolution numbers 5857 and 5858. And then also at that meeting, the City Council waived the first reading and introduced ordinance number 1154 by title for Sunset Hills Development. The project description, it does consist of a general plan amendment and a zone change to redesignate 7 parcels on approximately 1.2 acres from professional office to medium density residential R2. It also consists of a subdivision for the project site into 11 residential lots, ranging in size from 4,600 square feet to 5,562 square feet, and then develop the 11 detached single-family residential dwelling units on those 11 lots. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on March 22nd, 2017, and recommended approval of the mitigated neg deck, the general plan amendment, and zone change to Los Banos City Council. And also on that night, they approved vesting tentative tract map number 2016-03 and site plan review number 2016-07 for Sunset Hills Development. I'll go back. This is the project site. It's highlighted for you in the aerial in yellow, and there's a red arrow pointing to the project site of the 1.2 acres. It is on Delaware Avenue. It's the east side of Delaware Avenue, in between Madrone Street and Pine Street, just north of the Los Banos Memorial Hospital. To the north of the project site is single-family residential dwelling units. To the east is R3 high-density residential multifamily units, so they're apartment complexes. To the south of the project site, as I said, it stated that's the Los Banos Memorial Hospital, so it is civic institutional uses. And then to the west is single-family residential, as well as some multifamily with some triplexes on the west side of Delaware Avenue. This is the existing zoning map. And the color, that's that pink, purple, fuchsia color, that is professional office, and that's the project site is highlighted, outlined in black. This particular site is zoned professional office. But as you can see, a portion of the north as well as the west of this property is single-family residential, and then to the east is residential as well with the high density. Then the property to the south is civic institutional. This property has been zoned with this professional office designation for over a decade. It's been owned before this developer acquired the property by Sutter Gould. So Los Banos Memorial Hospital did own the parcels, but they were unable to develop. They're technically sized and really not meant for commercial development, professional office development. They're not conducive to that type of development. They're also surrounded by residential. So the hospital was unable to make any investment to develop that. And once they put the property up for sale, it was also, there wasn't any developers willing to develop with professional office or any type of commercial use that was permitted in that zoning district. So that's this particular developer acquired the property, and then looking at the surrounding uses, provided this proposal with the 11 single-family detached homes to blend in and to provide a transition from the high-density residential down to the single-family. So you'd see that transition from the brown, which is the R3, then this property would be R2, and then it would transition into the R1, which is low-density residential. So the environmental analysis, an initial study was prepared to identify and assess potential environmental impacts of this project. Staff determined that the project would not result in any significant environmental effects, provided that the mitigation measures described within the initial study and mitigated negative declaration are implemented. We then prepared a notice of intent and posted that with the county clerk's office and delivered to the Office of Planning and Research for circulation. And this was from February 10th to March 13th. And then hand-delivered that notice with the initial study and mitigated negative declaration to the Los Banos Unified School District. We did receive one comment letter that was on April 19th from the Los Banos Unified School District. So the project analysis, and I won't get into the response of that letter as we covered that last meeting, but if you'd like or have any questions, I can go back to that. But I will keep moving forward, that the project analysis has determined the compatibility with adjacent uses. This project does abut existing high-density multifamily units to the east, and it's adjacent to triplexes and single-family residences to the west. It creates a transition, like I previously said, between high-density and low-density uses, and also creates developable lots. So public comment. Public hearing notices were published in the Los Banos Enterprise and mailed to the 300-foot radius on April 7th, 2017. One comment letter was received by the Los Banos Unified School District, and the public hearing was opened and closed on April 19th, 2017. So with that, staff is recommending that the City Council would consider adopting Resolution Number 5857, approving the mitigated negative declaration and mitigation monitoring reporting plan for Sunset Hills Development, and adopt Resolution Number 5858, approving General Plan Amendment Number 2016-02 to redesignate property from professional office to medium-density residential. And then last, waive the second reading and adopt ordinance number 1154 by title to rezone the property known as Sunset Hills Development. And this concludes my presentation. I'm here to answer any of your questions, as well as Joe Rocha, the developer of Sunset Hills Development.
Very good. Ms. Lewis?
Yes, we've heard this presentation 3 times now. I don't know that this council has any change of mind, so I'd like to go on with the permission of the rest of the council, and make a motion on this item on the agenda.
I don't see no light, so I say go for it.
Okay. So I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 5857 as read by title.
Ms. Johnson Santos?
Second.
So we have a motion by Councilwoman Lewis, a second by Councilwoman Johnson Santos to approve resolution number 5857. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Ms. Lewis?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 5858 as read by title.
Ms. Johnson Santos?
Second.
So we have a motion by Councilwoman Lewis and a second by Councilwoman Johnson Santos to approve City Council Resolution Number 5858. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to waive the second reading of ordinance number 1154.
Ms. Johnson Santos?
Second.
So we have a motion to waive the second reading of ordinance number 1154 by Councilwoman Lewis and a second by Councilwoman Johnson Santos. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Ms. Lewis?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance number 1154 as read by title.
Ms. Johnson Santos?
Second.
So we have a motion by Councilwoman Lewis, a second by Councilwoman Johnson Santos to adopt ordinance number 1154. Lucy?
No.
Johnson Santos?
Yes.
Lewis?
Yes.
Silvera?
Yes.
Walter?
Motion carries. And we will call the mayor and the city attorney back in.
Okay, let's go on to item 11, cancellation of regular city council meeting scheduled for Wednesday, July 5th, 2017, due to the 4th of July holiday. And this is an action motion. Do I have Mr. Freya?
I'll move to cancel the regular city council meeting on July 5th, 2017, due to the 4th of July holiday.
Do I have a second? Mr. Lewis?
Second.
Okay, motion by Freya, second by Lewis to cancel the July 5th meeting. All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? None carried. Item number 12, advisement and public notices, one report. Director Elms?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So the public hearing will be held by the Planning Commission to consider a recommendation to the Los Banos City Council regarding the Los Banos General Plan Land Resources Amendment and draft subsequent environmental impact report. This subsequent EIR is being done as the farmland figure within the general plan EIR erroneously shows portions of the area within the urban growth boundary as urban and built-up land. So we need to correct that, and that's based on advice from our special legal counsel, Bill Abbott. So the city proposes to correct that error with the general plan amendment and has prepared a draft subsequent EIR to reanalyze the general plan's impacts on agricultural resources. We published the notice of availability on the city's website as well as the Merced County Clerk's Office and the Office of Planning and Research. You've seen so far one comment letter. We will be providing a response to that comment letter within the final EIR. So that will be provided as a recommendation by the Planning Commission. They will hear this item on Wednesday, June 28th at 7 p.m. here in the council chambers.
That doesn't include ag mitigation, does it?
Our recommendation within the study is not to include ag mitigation.
Thank you. Just what I wanted to hear. All right. Let's go. Any questions for Director Elms? All right. Let's go on to item 13, City Manager's Report. Alex?
Thank you, Mayor. I have 2 items to report tonight. Item A, on June 5th, 2017, based on my performance review, the police chief's salary was increased to $158,148 annually, and that will be retroactive to May 16th, 2017. Item B, the City Council, as part of Agenda Item 8B1, adopted the fiscal year 2017-2018 budget, which included approving a 3% salary increase for unrepresented full-time employees, which include the city manager and department heads. That's all I've got tonight, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Item number 14, City Council member reports. Mr. Silvera?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First off, I want to say congratulations again to Officer Solis and Sergeant Mendez. That's the first time since I've been on the council that we've held one of those ceremonies. So I want to say that it was neat to be a part of. Chief, you did a really nice job on that. Also wanted to thank not only department heads, but I want a special thanks to the budget staff. I know that they live and breathe that budget for 3-4 months before we ever even get to see it. And so Kim, Rosemary, Sarah, and Sonia, I know you guys do an excellent job. I know we win awards on the presentations of our budgets and our audit findings and stuff. So thank you guys for that. And just one more quick comment is at the end of the day, we passed a budget today, but we passed an unbalanced budget. It's not balanced. We spent more money than we brought in, and we've done that for a few years now. And I realize that we've spent some one-time monies to do projects that are they're not an ongoing expense. It's just one time. It's stuff that we needed to maybe catch up on. But at the end of the day, it's not a balanced budget. And in the way that math works in my head, you have this general fund reserve, and if you keep spending more than what you bring in, eventually you don't have that reserve anymore. And by resolution, this council will not go below a 30% general fund reserve. And we speak a lot about general fund because that's the funds that we dictate. We have, as a council, we have control over the general fund. Enterprise funds, which a lot of the public works employees are in, those funds are not-for-profit funds. They can't charge more than what it costs for those services, and I have my thoughts on how you guys deal with that, because when you come up and you say that you want a 5% increase for all non-represented, unclassified employees, whatever the title that we're using on them is, it's not just the public works employees. It's all the department heads. It's all the staff that works here at City Hall. It is, and Sonia, you said it, it's even some of the folks in police and fire. And so when you're talking about a general fund that you're deficit spending today, the money's not coming in to cover the bills. That's the harsh way of saying it. The reality to me is that it doesn't just affect the general fund. We need to look at ways to maybe, if those COLAs were built into the water rates, the utility rates that we charge, then maybe there's a different way of approaching that. But to me, approaching it is just saying all represented employees. It's like comparing apples to oranges. It's just my comments. And again, I look forward to having some conversations with some of the folks in Public Works one-on-one and explaining my position on it. And I don't ever want anybody to think that I don't think that you guys do a good job. You guys do. You do hard work. You do the work down. You do the thankless job, and it's because again you guys do it so well that most people just forget that you're even out there doing it because everything runs smooth. So at the end of the day, I'm glad that we passed a budget. It's not a balanced budget, but hopefully one day we'll get there, because I'm telling you guys, mark my words, we'll come back and watch this. This CalPERS deal is gonna put this city sideways, and until we figure out a way that our revenues grow higher than what our expenses are, it's crazy. It scares me. It's literally one of the things that I lose sleep over at night is how do you absorb that? By my math, 2.5, $3 million. And I get it. Sonia estimated, that's her job as the finance director. You want them to estimate everything on the high side, but $2 million a year that it's going to cost the city of Los Banos to not have You're not getting a better employee. You're not getting a worse employee. You're not getting a new employee. Just status quo. So those are all things that go into making my decisions. And so I hope that explains it a little bit. And Mayor, that's all I have for this evening. Thank you.
Mr. Freya.
Mr. Mayor. Congratulations on the Festa. The DES Festa is annual tradition. It was big and beautiful as always with a lot of work. Many of our city employees work very hard directly in the Festa and also our city working on the streets and to make that parade safe and everything. It's a beautiful thing. There's another celebration, the Our Lady of Mont Carmel, sponsored by primarily the Italian community. And that will be in July. And I don't think we'll have a council meeting before that, so I want to make sure I get that in. And they have a 3-day celebration, and then they serve stew at the DES Hall in the afternoon, which is open to the public, and so that's always a lot of fun. Tonight was about work and working people, which is what we all are. And I get a little bit emotional because my father, the tradesman, my father, the truck driver, he was quite well known in his career. He was the first man to drive doubles into Oregon and Washington in the snow. He developed a special hauling system for milk cans with a special conveyor system. And he was also the first guy to haul a load of glass out of Owens, Illinois and Tracy. So he was always called upon for special jobs. And as a truck driver, he knew more than anyone I've ever seen. And he took his job and his career as a professional truck driver. And by the way, if you drive any of you've never driven a 70,000 pound piece of equipment down a highway, it's 60 miles an hour. That's a skill. And dealing with the traffic and everything else and do it safely every day, in his case, for 4 million miles without a ticket or an accident. That's pretty impressive. Unfortunately, he had to quit working because of a back injury, and when he quit working, he learned that the company he worked for hadn't taken care of his pension. So at 55 years old, Dad quit working without an income. And I went to college at that time at one of the most expensive schools in the state. So it was a matter of while the rest of the kids were loading up their skis every Thursday night on their fancy little cars that Mommy and Daddy bought them, I loaded up my dad's international pickup with. On weekends, I played Portuguese dance band. 2 nights a week, I taught private piano lessons. I worked hours in the music library, and I used to, and we had a little piece of ground left from my mother's family, and so we scratched out a living off of that, working with a set of tractors that belonged in a museum. And so I learned the value of work, as did my wife. And the two of us worked, and we teach that work is the key to success. And I teach that to my students. And the way you show appreciation for work is you pay people. And the way, and so, well, the prestige, yeah? And prestige in America comes with a paycheck. So we want to do all we can there. I realize it's tough, and it's not going to get any easier. And that general fund isn't getting bigger fast enough, and that's why I voted against the extra houses. I can't change all these houses. We got 2,000 houses we can build that we inherited. We can't change that. We can't stop those from being built. But we can stop rezonings and we can stop new annexations unless we can see that they're going to financially benefit this city enough to be able to pay our employees enough money and pay enough money to supply the services we need. It's like bringing a child into the family and you can't afford to take care of the child. It's your responsibility. So I want to stay on that position. And so in new housing, I've actually asked staff to take a look at long-term financial situation and long-term financial effects of housing and how it's going to affect all the financial aspects of the city and whether, how does it help us? If it doesn't help us, we don't need to add any more to it. So finally, over the next couple of weeks, we'll probably be grandparents again. And this will be the first boy child to the Freya clan, so since me. So it'll be a lot of anticipation, a lot of excitement. Congratulations, Gabriella, and pray all goes well. And see you all in a couple of weeks, in a month now. Thanks.
Thank you. Mrs. Santos.
First, I'd like to start by thanking for the invitation to the Flag Day service. It was very nice. I did appreciate the information I was given there. I'd also like to thank Sonia for taking time to go through the budget with me when I should have been there on that day, and unfortunately I was not able. And though I am kind of hesitant to add this in, I would like to also say that my words of saying that I do feel for you, I know it sounded nonchalant, but I would like to say that I work 3 jobs, and that, not that this puts me above anyone, but I want you to know where I'm coming from with my answers. I do definitely feel for you. I completely understand. But also our staff is working very hard, and I believe that they have done the right thing as of right now. So I just wanted to put that out there and say that my words were not just meant to be thrown out there and be nonchalant, but I do understand. I do feel for you. So thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd also like to congratulate Officer Solis and Sergeant Mendez, I think I said his name properly, for their heroic act in saving those 2 lives in the fire and really going beyond the call of their daily duties. It was a job well done, and the award they received tonight was one that was really due them and much more. So I thank them. I thank our police department and our fire, public works, all of our staff for the job that they do for our city to keep us going and keep us afloat. Not many cities can say what we're able to say up here tonight as far as our employees are concerned. Thank you for your job, and thank you for your service to the city. Like Mrs. Johnson Santos, even when I worked for the county, there was a time when I worked 3 jobs, and you do what you have to do to take care of yourself and your family. So, I recognize when finances need to be augmented, and you go out there and do what you have to do to take care of that. We also had a event at Walmart, I think it was last week, for their first graduating academy of employees who will be training other employees within the district that the academy represents. It was a really nice event, and I was really impressed to see and hear the standard that Walmart is setting for its employees and the service that it will be giving the public, and training everyone to understand that, we have goals and we want everyone to meet the goals the same, not go out there and, strike out and do something on your own. So it was a very impressive event, and I'm happy that Walmart decided to build that academy here in Los Banos. And with that, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And let me, before I forget, you're right, Mrs. Lewis, that was a nice graduation ceremony. Mrs. Lewis and I attended that, and they actually built a facility in Los Banos to train between 60 and 90 employees a week as Walmart trainees in management, and then they graduate them, go through a full graduation. So it was nice, and if these employees travel a certain distance, then they will stay in Los Banos. So not only are they training the Los Banos employees, of which they graduated 60, they are now training 90 every 6 weeks, because the course takes 6 weeks for them to go through. And it's a really nice training facility. They did a good job. So thank you to Walmart for locating that facility here, as long as they have the trainees. Officer Solis and Sergeant Mendez, what else can we say that hasn't been said tonight? Thank you again for your service, and thank you being part of the Los Banos team. I think all of us on this council have different views, but the different views all come together. I think we're all concerned about the same things, and whatever we can give, we're going to give. When we can look, we can look. I think the looking has to be at the right time to make sure that we have all the information and not just come up with a quick answer, because I don't think the employees or the council members want that. So let's see what happens. The cooling shelters. Chief Breezy sent me a note that says that they're going to be open. Thursday was supposed to be the last night, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. at the community center, but now they've extended it to Friday night, 9 to 5 p.m. So please, if you know people that don't have air conditioning and they would like to go sit at the community center, that would work just well for them. Also Thursday and Friday on 7th Street, the library on 7th Street, 10 to 6 p.m. and Friday 10 to 5 p.m. If they'd like to go there, that will also be available as a cooling shelter. So if you know someone who doesn't have air conditioning, someone who would like a place to sit that is air conditioned, please direct them to the community center. And when it doesn't say a cooling shelter is open, it is open. The hours of the community center are daily, at least till 5 p.m. Mark, is that correct?
Monday through Friday to 5.
Monday through Friday from 8 or 9 to 5?
9 to 5.
9 to 5. So even if it's into the high 90s and someone would like to cool off, please direct them to the community center. It is open. It is air conditioned. They should take advantage of it. At the last city council meeting, and I wish people would think before they speak sometimes, because the person who spoke on the dam improvement, not the dam improvement, the dam improvement, and raising the level of the dam, he said there were going to be 2,000 workers. Well, thank you, Alex, for clarifying, and got that down by the next day to 500 workers, and now it's down to between 200 and 300. So we're not getting 2,000 workers, and it's going to be between 200 and 300 maybe. So please spread that information. The enterprise printed 2,000 right away, and people think we're going to be inundated with employees. That's not going to happen. So it's better just to, if you don't know the answer to a question, don't give a quick answer, because that 2,000 employees just caused kind of a stir with the school district, and now it's okay, but it took a while to get all the correct information out. So Alex, thank you for trying to find out what was going on. I appreciate that. So with that, have a nice and safe 4th of July, and I will tell you there will be patrols out of fire and police. The tickets are how much? $1,200? $1,250 if you get caught with illegal fireworks or using safe and sane fireworks illegally. So even if you have safe and sane fireworks and you alter those fireworks into doing something that they're not supposed to do, that is a $1,250 fine. So patrols will be out that night, and not that we want to fine the public. I hope that everyone obeys the laws, but sometimes people just don't listen.
Non-emergency number for fireworks calls.
Oh. What?
Non-emergency number to report fireworks.
Okay.
Illegal fireworks.
A non-emergency number, 827-7070. If you to report fireworks and use that number, then dial 0 and the dispatcher will come on. So what you're saying is don't dial 911. Right. Okay. Don't dial 911. But if there's an emergency or a fire, dial it. Dial it, please. I mean, just because someone sets something off with fireworks, God forbid, dial 911 and get them out there ASAP. Anything you want to add?
I hate the 4th. The 4th of July will be very busy for us, and you are right. The police department, the fire department will be out with zero tolerance on dangerous and illegal fireworks. I expect to encounter some. I hope we don't, but there will not be warnings issued.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, with that, we're going to go to closed session. If there's anything to report out, we will do so after closed session. 2 items, conference with real property negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8, property located 1111 G Street, Los Banos, California, APN 026-161-003, 026-161-008. Portion, approximately 6.4 acres. City negotiators, City Manager Terrazas, City Attorney Vaughn, Finance Director Williams, Police Chief Breezy, negotiating parties Sam Watson under negotiation. Purchase price and terms of sale. Item B, public employee annual performance evaluation pursuant to Government Code Section 54957, title City Manager. Have a nice 4th.